Let's get the meeting to order. Welcome to the Carroll Community School District School Board meeting. The agenda this evening, we're going to call to order. I guess it's about 5:30 right now. And we need to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Annika,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yeah,
Karen,
Yes. Okay, moving on. The consent agenda. Who was working? Annika. Any questions about bills? No? Okay. Do you want to talk about any of these? Gary? General fund, food service, nothing? Nothing? Okay, all right. All right, resignations on the pink sheet. That's it.
just a second here, I'm getting there.
So like this one, looks like this. There you go. Yeah, right there. Right there it is.
All right, we have two resignations. Jesse Tatman wishes to resign from his contracted bus driving position. He started working for the school district this year, wishes to remain on the substitute and activity driving list. And then Rebecca Sporer wishes to resign from her special education teacher associate position at Carroll High School. She started working for the district 2 years ago.
Motion to approve the resignations.
I'll second.
Just the resignations or the consent agenda?
Oh, sorry, consent agenda.
Did you want your motion to be the consent agenda?
Sure, sorry.
And then I'll give you a second. Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
yeah,
Karen,
Yes.
Annika.
Yes.
Correction, Gary.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the public forum. I see there's quite a few folks, it's like they want to speak this evening. And we could go by first come, first serve. Whoever's here first can speak first. Just remember to please identify yourself and be aware you have a 3-minute limit. And we can just go around the room.
Did you want to have Casey do administrative or do you want to?
What do you think, Casey? Does it matter to you to move that before?
It really doesn't matter. We certainly can, but I don't.
I don't know if that's all the everyone has the same concerns. So.
Maybe just follow the agenda.
Yeah, let's just follow the agenda. Okay. So, who was here first? Brad, you want to go first?
well, it came to, I think, many of our attention that the board was going to discuss the possibility of having the middle school look at a hybrid change. And I know when I thought about it, I personally, first of all, graduated, got a high school daughter and a middle school son. You know, I jotted down five things. You know, just keep in mind realistic expectations. I don't know the specific number of students. I know of one 8th grade student and one 7th grade student that tested positive. I don't know if there's more, but I think when you went into these times and went back to school, that if you're thinking of going to a hybrid plan with 2 students in middle school that tested positive, that's an unrealistic expectation to set to change. The second thing I think of is having students in the classroom in those seats every day. You have positive control over those students. You know who they're with, you know who they're sitting by, you know what classroom they're in, you know, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I think the system of the quarantining and who's getting quarantined and stuff is flawed, but I'm not, you know, gonna discuss that. That is a totally separate discussion. But I also think that system seems to be working somewhat because of the positive students in the high school, the positive students in middle school. I don't know of another single positive test that has resulted from a student that had been to school. And I know the number of quarantine students exceeds 150 at the high school, and I don't know the specific number at the middle school. But we're not seeing a large number of positive cases as a result of exposure student contact in school. When you talk positive controls, I don't think it's any secret Adventureland chose to stay open in Des Moines because Des Moines is going to online education. They have never stayed open during the week. And all of a sudden now this year, they decided to stay open during the week after the holiday because they're getting students to show up. You don't have positive control over those students. They're not going to stay home. Hey, my kids didn't stay home during the whole quarantine and shutdown. It's hard to keep kids home. And the other thing is, I think the one other thing that jumps out at me is the percentage of parents that chose to have their students online educated in the district versus in-person instruction. I think that speaks volumes for, everybody knows what the risks are. But I think that speaks volumes to the population Carroll community, what they want to see as far as the education and how they want to see that set up. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Casey Forky Burke, and just going kind of off of what Brad said, I've had 2 children. I have 4 kids, 1 child at each school. And so far I've had 2 kids quarantined, my high schooler and my 6th grader. And I think it's important before we decide to move to anything hybrid for the middle school that we really think about how we're educating these kids that are at home. That was a big issue that I had with both of my kids being at home. Maybe my 6th grader had maybe an hour's worth of homework a day. He was sending assignments in and not hearing back from teachers. Cried almost every day of quarantine because not only are they missing out on activities, they're missing out on the classroom, being with friends. I mean, when I was called by the nurse, it was they stay in their rooms, they don't leave their rooms without a mask. I mean, it was very strict, and we let our kids out of their rooms obviously and around the house, but I think it's really important for us to really evaluate what we're doing educationally for these kids that are at home. And I'm wondering why across town, Kemper is going live and doing everything live, and they're taking attendance, and the kids are able to ask questions during class. And I'm wondering why we don't have that for our kids. Because it's hard enough to be home, but then when you're missing out on that instruction from teachers and even hearing friends, other students talking during class, I just think that's really important. And I'm a huge proponent for in-person learning, and I knew that we were going to have kids home here and there, but I wonder if we're really looking, at what this is causing, sending all of these kids home. It's hard, and it's falling on parents, and we don't know what to do with it, we don't know how to handle it. And I guess I'm just looking for more answers. And I'm hoping that's not the route we're going to go, because these kids, it's hard enough for high school kids, but my son's 11, and I'm working full time. My husband's working full time. They need to be in school. They really need to be in school, all ages. So that's just my concerns.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing.
Hey, Nikki Olberding. I also, with Casey, have an 11-year-old that is a 6th grader at the middle school, and I share the same concern with the hybrid learning. He already has a hard time in school as it is, and he has a very hard time keeping on task. And I know he had come home early one day because he had a stomachache, and he was told by the nurse he had to stay up for 24 hours. So we couldn't take him back until the following afternoon. And there were already several assignments that were in there as missed. I don't know, I know he wasn't in class at that time, but when we have access through the portal to see where our students' grades are, not only am I getting frustrated for him, but he's also getting frustrated because number one, he didn't have the opportunity to talk with the teacher when he was gone to find out what the assignment was, what he needed to do. And I mean, I understand that the teachers are very busy because they're dealing with a lot right now, and I commend them for teaching when times like this are tough. But my concern is what will happen if he does go hybrid. Like Casey, I work full-time, as I'm sure most of these parents here do. And I'm not necessarily sure I'm gonna be able to provide him that structure that he's gonna need at home if he does go hybrid. I mean, yes, his older sister is home, but trying to have her take care of him and his learning, that's a big concern. And I just would be curious to see what the thoughts are, what we're looking at doing going forward, if there's another option.
Thanks, Nikki.
My name's Jen Jorgensen. Most of my concerns have already been addressed. I guess I just have questions I would like answered. I would like to know who is ultimately making the decision of who's being quarantined. Are there guidelines we're going off of? Is it Ann making her own decisions? I mean, I'm not bashing Ann because I would not want her job for anything, but I guess I would just like to know how those decisions are being made. And then I'm just curious to see, out of all these kids that are being quarantined, are we testing them? How many are being positive? And can we trace it back to that direct contact from the kid that they were sent home from?
Good question.
Really interesting.
Jennifer Miller, same with what Jen said, a lot of my issues have been addressed also, but I guess one question I have is, it was brought to my attention last week by another parent that our absenteeism rate is the exact same number as it was a year ago. So if you look at that number and you look at the amount of kids, healthy, they're not sick, they are not tested positive, they are healthy and they are sitting at home. And I agree with what Ann and Nikki said, we're not doing anything to help them educationally while they're at home. That is my biggest, luckily, I've not had anybody quarantined yet at my house. But that is a fear of mine, is that they sit there. I mean, I have a high schooler who, granted, is not there very often because of his schedule. But even on those days that he's hybrid, I mean, he still loves to go to school, he wants to learn. And it frustrates him that he doesn't even have enough to do. So, I mean, why are we not being able to remote those kids into their classrooms, take an attendance? That's my biggest frustration right there. If you guys want to do the hybrid just in order to save these kids from not having to be quarantined, then we have got to work on something to get those kids educationally involved every single day.
Thanks, Jen.
Ann Collison, I have a high schooler, 2 high schoolers and a middle schooler. And again, going down the road, I want to kind of piggyback on what Brad was saying. Like, my concern was how many of these kids that we've sent home have actually had symptoms or tested positive from this. I just feel like there's so many kids, and none of my kids have been sent home yet. I feel mentally I have pretty strong kids. I feel like every day it's like they get called. Matt got called to the office to get his little warm up for football, and it was like, oh my gosh, you know. And even the assistant at the desk there at the front office was like, I feel bad going into these rooms because the kids see me and they're like, is it me? You know. And so I just think, what are we doing to the kids? Is it worth it? I guess I would like to see, like what Brad said, how many kids are being affected by this one kid? Is it worth sending all of these kids home? And kind of what Jen was saying too, at what point do we just look, where's the risk not worth, I guess, or the risk more than actually sending the kids and getting them to go to school and enjoy school. I just feel like the kids are trying to do all they can to be there, and I just want to make sure, like, and I applaud you all for what you're doing. I know it's not an easy position, but parents, I've had many friends that have said it's just been so tough having those kids at home and no online learning and no person-to-person contact, and that's what those kids love and deserve, I feel like.
Thanks, Ann.
Gene Ludwig had a high schooler and a middle schooler, freshman in 6th grade. Everything they've said is what I had to say. So.
Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. I think that Casey's probably going to be able to address some of these concerns in his report here soon. So I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you expressing your concerns, because what you're concerned with, I'm sure there's many like you that are having the same concern that just couldn't show up. And so thank you very much. And we need to hear from you. And, we're really glad.
You know, she's happy that our kids want to be in school.
Oh,
I mean, no
yeah.
offense, but I mean, you know, my husband and I had the conversation the other day that I said, oh my gosh, I look back at last year, the year before, and you hear of other kids that are like, we missed 20 days of school this year because they faked being sick or whatever. And I mean, if those are the cases now, they're hurting the kids that want to be there. And I think we need to applaud the kids that want to be there. They do. They want to be in school. They want to learn. So
We want them
should be
there.
happy for
We want them there too. We want them in school.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
It's fun to drive by the schools and hear kids outside
It
playing.
is. It's like the last of normal.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's a tough time, but if we could just maybe not focus so much on it and really focus on the education. I mean, you know, sometimes even like Slade might say, oh, we can't sit in our desk for a while. They have to wipe it down. And I mean, no offense, he's very anal with school. So he's like, that takes 5 minutes of my time, you know, just bear with them. But I mean, I just, you know, let's focus on education.
And kind of off of that, I would have loved to like have somebody from the school reach out to me and ask like, hey, how was quarantine? Like how did we do? You know, what do we need to change? How do we need to go forward?
Sure.
You know, with these kids that have been at home, because we're the ones that see it.
Right.
You know, it's easy. I mean, not easy, but like when they're out of the room, they're out of sight, out of mind. Literally, it's everything you're getting is over an email. And I mean, we did a Zoom meeting with a math teacher because you can't always read math and understand it. You know, I would love to have like somebody interested in how it went for us, because it wasn't good. We had a lot of problems. And if it happens again, I don't want to have those problems. And for any other kid that's at home, I don't want that for any kid, not just my own.
Sure.
We need to be better.
So it's the communication piece that really is a concern as well.
It
that-
is. And we're all going above and beyond.
Right.
I sit in line for an hour every day picking 2 kids up from 2 different schools. I mean, I have to take off work and, you know, it's not convenient for me, but I do it because I'm doing my part. You know, we all have to put that extra effort in because it's not forever. It's for right now. And we need to do that for the kids.
I agree. I think we would all agree on that. It's-
Yeah.
Can we go through the personnel report quick and the donations so that Casey can
Sure.
do the administrative report and hopefully you can answer those questions that we.
I do have something to say. Casey, I've never been to a board meeting before. Do I talk now or is that what I have to say later?
You probably should have her talk to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Talk down. Yeah. Go ahead.
Nice to meet some of you. I'm one of the new school nurses at Carroll High, Melinda Malhoff, and I haven't signed a contract yet for this year because well, the board meeting had to meet first, but one of my concerns was when initially asked if I would, you know, to be hired. I looked online at the Carroll district, and the last pay scale that was on there was for 2017, 2018, and then it was quite different than what Casey had mentioned to me over the phone. And I was, he said that he would, you know, address it with all of you. I was just wondering why, in a year where nurses have more responsibility than ever, that the pay scale would be much lower than it was in 2017. So I asked that you could at least honor the 2017, 2018 pay scale. If not, you know, if you don't, I'm looking to kind of see what the average nurse pay is for other schools.
We approve pay scales yearly through our negotiations, which is part of the nursing salary, is part of the negotiations. Probably the scale that you saw was when we were getting supplemental aid, the teacher.
That pay scale included supplemental aid that was supposed to be only for teachers. That's why it's different. The pay scale didn't go down. The scale that was on there, though, included teacher supplemental pay.
But bottom line is it.
What's that?
But bottom line, it did go down.
No. The bottom line, it went down because there was teacher supplemental pay going in there, which shouldn't have been. So
if you, even if taking out the supplemental teacher pay, why wasn't it more money allocated than for the
nurses' positions are a union position. Okay, that's negotiated every year. So it hasn't gone down. I've been here 30 years. It never did go down. So the nursing scale always goes up.
But the base pay is different from 2017, 18 to 2020.
No.
It's not.
No, I can show you that. So part of the reason is teachers get a little over $6,000 in supplemental pay. Nurses should not have been receiving that, and really only one was receiving it. So that was corrected, probably 3 or 4 years ago.
So when so in 2017, 18, the CDA contract, step 0 was 30,075. And for this year, it is up to 28,000.
What I'm telling you is the base that's on there is incorrect. Okay? That's it. The one that was on there back in 2017 or whenever, whoever put it on the website, they got the wrong schedule. So.
Okay, so I thought you said that it was more back in 2017, 18 because there was supplemental.
Yes, I said that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the nurse's salary schedule has gone up every year. The year you were looking at, inadvertently, they put teacher salary supplement money in there, which shouldn't have been there. The nurse's salary base never did go down. So if you want that history, I can go back. But like I said, that's negotiated every year with the union. They wouldn't allow it to go backward.
Okay.
So we're done with public forum. Moving on to personnel report.
So we have 5 recommendations for contracts and some volunteers. First, I'm recommending Melinda Mayhoff for an RN position for this year. If approved, she would be on step 10 of the nurse salary schedule and receive $28,791. Approval is recommended retroactive to August 27th. Tammy McKenzie is recommending Deb Grody for regular education teacher associate at high school. If approved, the hiring would be retroactive to September 4th. It's a 7-hour position, paid $11.84 per hour. That's the base, or the base wage plus the 30 cent for paraeducation educator certificate and experience. Randy Beeson's recommending Kim Becerra for middle school 7th grade volleyball coaching position. She has 6 years of paid coaching experience. She's coached JV freshman and junior high levels. That experience will help at the junior high level. If approved, Kim will be on step 7 and will receive $1,970. Number 4, Sarah Anderson's recommending Tanner Galing for food service worker position at Carroll Middle School. If approved, Tanner would work 5.5 hours and would receive $10 an hour. And Sarah Anderson's recommending Rosie Rivas for a food service worker position, 5 3/4 hours a day. Rosie will work in multiple buildings, filling in where needed. If approved, her rate of pay would be $12.50 an hour. And-
Don't we need to add for Elizabeth that it's a 1-year contract? That was what.
Yeah, it is a 1-year contract. Volunteers, Tammy and Bill Poking are recommending Sean Canuso for volunteer position for speech program. That's one volunteer. And then we have some modifications. Pat Rabbit's recommending Amanda Augustus be considered for a special education severe and profound teacher associate position for 3 3/4 hours out of her 6 3/4 hour current position. So half of it, or a little over half, would be a different pay rate. So if approved, the severe and profound hours would be $12.72 per hour. Pat Rabbit's also recommending Amanda Felix be transferred to a special education severe and profound teacher position, associate position for 3 1/4 hours per day out of her 6 3/4 hour, 6 3/4 per day position, retroactive the 25th of August. If approved, her rate of pay for severe and profound hours would be $12.67 per hour. Pat Rabbit is recommending Paula Finken to be transferred to a special education severe and profound teacher associate position for 3 1/4 hours a day out of an 8-hour day, retroactive to August 25th. If approved, her rate of pay for severe and profound hours would be $13.42 an hour. Pat Rabbit is recommending Stacy Rummerfield to be transferred to a special education severe and profound teacher associate position for 3 1/4 hours per day out of a 6 3/4 hour day position, retroactive to August 25th. If approved, her rate of pay would be for the severe and profound hours would be $12.92 an hour. Pat Rabbit is recommending Allison Hike be transferred to a special education severe and profound teacher position, associate position, 6 3/4 hours per day, retroactive to August 25th. If approved, her rate of pay would for severe and profound hours would be $12.92 an hour. And Tammy McKenzie is recommending Sarah Finneran be transferred to a special education teacher associate position effective September 24th, vacated by Rebecca Sporer. If approved, her rate of pay would be $12.10 per hour. And that's it.
Why do we have so many changes? Do we have a lot more kids coming? Okay.
I can answer. We have a lot of new people. Patrick and Crystal and so forth. We used to never bring these to the board. And so Mary presented these. I see that she had put them on there. We talked about it a little bit and then decided we'd go ahead and put them on there. But as you know, under the contract, those that are working with severe and profound special ed kids get that $1 an hour bonus. That's what most of these are just telling you, is that how many hours a day they will receive that extra $1. So it's just something you haven't seen before. So
And if I could add, just very real quick, is we've had 2 new students join us this year, and they're really high needs. And so what we've done is just split the hours, and so half the day is prepared at two associates with 1 child, and then they split the day at lunchtime. And so that impacts Gary's work as well.
And I think too, it's probably good for you to know, because the reason they're receiving this extra $1 an hour is that those are positions that are extremely difficult. I mean, they're dealing with the most handicapped kids within the district. It's very hard for us sometimes to fill those positions. It's also hard on the kids when we continue to move TAs around. So, we decided several years ago we would propose that, and it's worked well. So.
I'll move to approve the recommendations, volunteers, and contract modification clarifications, adding the 1-year contract to the nursing position.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Annika,
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
I think we'll move the donations down and go ahead to your administrative report. How's that?
Okay.
We're gonna move past donations right now, move that to the end and go into the administrative report. Superintendent's report.
Yeah, I have a few things to share, and some of what I'll share, I think the principals will be adding to some of the things that I share, and I think between some of the things I have down and some of the things they have down, several of the questions will probably get answered there. Some of the questions that you folks had at the start. To start with, I would say that, and let me say before I jump into this, let me just say that I hope everybody understands too that we are working from the point of wanting kids in school. Okay, I feel like there's times where, and if I'm being thin-skinned, that's fine too. You can tell me that, but sometimes I feel like the things we hear back from the public is there's this sense of like we're trying to maneuver or posture for going full online learning. And I can tell you, administratively anyway, for sure, that's not the framework from which we're working. Okay, it's our desire to be in school, and we're gonna. I feel like we've done even up to this point. Folks should understand that that's the case. Given it's not wasn't my desire, and it wasn't your desire. I know that right as school is starting, all of a sudden Carroll County's numbers are going up. And then of course, when that happens, then we start school and we have some positive cases. So I think we've learned some things through that, and I think we'll continue to learn. And right now our mindset is, how do we manage this? Because I don't think any of us can look out into the future and say, here's the end point of this. I wish I could, but I don't think I have that ability, and so far nobody else has shown that they do either. So hopefully you understand that, as we go through this. I don't think you'll hear a recommendation tonight about anything different at the middle school. Again, our focus is managing the situation that we have. Hopefully, some of the questions that you asked, I believe will get answered here though, okay? First of all, right now, as of today, of course we didn't have school, but we have 6 students, preschool through 12, who have tested positive for COVID-19. Okay, that number changes daily. It'll look different in the morning, and depending on the day, it'll look different by the end of the day. But that's where we stand before I came into the meeting. We have.
Is that from the beginning of the year? So some of them are back? Those 6?
No, we've had more total cases than that. That's today how many people are positive. Yeah. We have 1 staff member who is positive as well. Right now, today, and this number will look different tomorrow, but there's 103 students in quarantine. That's K-12. Okay. We have kids returning tomorrow, and we have kids that are going into quarantine tomorrow, unfortunately. At this point in the year, we've had about, approximately 350 kids in quarantine, students. Okay. And that's K-12. You asked the question about, how many cases are we seeing as a result of those kids who are quarantining, and I would say this is unofficial or not even very scientific, but on our spreadsheets that we look at, we're looking at that, and we've counted 3 at this point of students who have been in quarantine that ended up testing positive. So not a big number. Okay.
Can you track those back to that they got it from being exposed to the positive students?
We think that those 3, to the best of our knowledge with the information we have, we think that's where the exposure came from those 3. We're still seeing a majority of cases coming from exposure outside of school. And that's again based on what's being reported to us from families, public health, that kind of thing. We're consistently running, people talked about attendance rates. This year, we're consistently running 95 to 97% attendance rates. Last year, those numbers looked about the same. That's true. Now, that 95 to 97 doesn't include quarantine kids, but we're not supposed to include those, okay? So if you did, that would drop it down about 86 or 87, depending on the day, percent. So there's some confusion about attendance rates that I'm hoping to clear up here, at least with the folks in the room. First, we've always reported if we have a 10% absentee rate in any building, especially when we get to flu season. I mean, that usually doesn't happen at any other time than like that November to February timeframe. But whenever there's been a 10% absentee rate for the flu, we reported that we had that case for sure once last year, maybe twice in a building, and it didn't result in us closing. So the idea that as soon as an absentee percentage gets to 10% that we have to close is not accurate, okay? Just like it's not accurate that if we get to 15 to 20% positivity rate that we have to close. It's not accurate, or we would have closed, right? So those things, people still have that idea, and I'm just telling you that that's not the case. With COVID this year, we were asked to report the 10% absentee rate again due to COVID. So that's anybody that tests positive, okay, a known positive case, or anybody that calls in the morning, which parents have been doing a wonderful job this year, calling and saying, you know what, my kid's got some of these symptoms that we shared, we're gonna keep them home today, him or her home today, okay? And so any of those kind of situations are included in those numbers, all right? To this point, we've not had anywhere close to 10% attendance absentee rate, okay, with those two situations. At this point, the closest we've got is about 5. There was one day I think we were about 5%, but that's the closest we've been. I've been over that, okay. So second of all, the next thing I wanted to report, we've been in the hybrid model at the high school. Tammy is going to talk more about this in her report, I'm sure. We've not moved to that model at the middle school. And sometimes people wonder, well, what's the number? What's the number that warranted or that we made a decision about the high school or that we would use at the middle school? Honestly, I don't have a number. At the high school, we didn't have a number. We decided it was, we saw the number of cases we had at that point, the number that were going for testing, the number of kids that were out due to are in quarantine, which we got over 100 kids in the high school, and that's when we decided to look at the hybrid model, okay? But this week, of course, we have a decision to make about the high school and how to proceed after the end of September. Right now, I wanted to report that we're good in terms of PPE that we have available, cleaning and disinfecting products, gloves, etc. We have plenty on hand, and we think we're able to get more of those things. And then just one of the last things, I think I got a couple more things actually, but one other thing I want to go through is when we do have a positive case, what's the process? And again, I mentioned earlier, I think, we continue to refine that and work on it, but here's how it works. We are notified either from a parent or a family or public health. Sometimes the parent notifies us before public health does. We then let public health know. Our nurses then work with public health in the school. As far as the contact tracing, we do that. We do have seating charts, and we obviously look at those. We have had the conversation that we're not just using seating charts alone. Things change. So we're talking to teachers. We're looking at what's going on or what went on in the classroom that day and trying to make a determination about who may have been exposed. The 6 feet of distance for 15 consecutive minutes or longer is the kind of the standard that they're looking at, okay, when trying to decide who was in close contact. So we then get that information, we let public health know. Our nurses have been calling, we've been shifting that a little bit more to having public health call or contact. It doesn't always work depending on the timing and their caseload. Public health, our local public health has turned over the contact tracing to the state public health department, which isn't uncommon. Many counties have done that. But sometimes there's a delay. And so our nurses are making those phone calls, and we've asked that they, when that arises, and we've asked that they make sure that folks understand that the quarantine decision is public health's decision, okay? And we've looked into, okay, that public health is saying that these kids have to quarantine. Do we have to enforce that? And yes, it is our understanding that we do need to enforce that. Okay. It's a frustration for us as well, because as I said, again, working from the mindset of wanting kids in school, that's a lot of kids that aren't in school, and it creates issues, as we've heard from you folks at home. And it also is a challenge for us at school as well. So the other thing that comes up is what we do is it's 14 days. Okay. And that's back to, we go back to 2 days before symptoms started for the positive case. Okay, so that's where it starts. So sometimes we don't find out about these until later, because maybe symptoms develop late, the testing time frame, and then we get results back, and we're going back a week or more to those 2 days. And so the 14 in those situations, there's not a full 14 days that students are out. A student that tests positive is 10 days from the day symptoms began, I believe. So that's another thing that's sometimes hard to make sense of, and I understand that, where there could be a student that's positive is actually back before a kid in quarantine. So that's kind of how we do that. But I think that, we're continuing to look at our classrooms and what things we can do to try to better social distance, so we don't have as many kids out in quarantine, especially at the middle school at this time. The high school, our numbers we don't have as many kids going into quarantine. And I guess I would also echo something that Brad said earlier. I mean, I think the good news is that we aren't seeing, like some schools are reporting, where all of a sudden in a day's time, they've got 10, 11 positive cases in their student body. We haven't seen that yet, which is a good thing. One other thing related to COVID, and then I have a non-COVID thing in my update here, but we are having a situation where staff members are out due to quarantine. We haven't had a ton of positive cases among our staff at this point, but we have several out due to quarantining. We are struggling to find subs, and so we are working on identifying those situations where we can't find subs. We need people here. If folks are asymptomatic, having them return before, I'm talking about people in quarantine now, before that 14 days is up, when we truly have a shortage of staff to fill those positions. In those cases, those staff members would be checked, their temperature checked twice a day, and we would require a face covering in that situation until that quarantine time is up. And if any symptoms develop, they would have to isolate immediately. And I worked with our attorney on that today, just to make sure that we're following the right rules, because when we have situations with certain staff, for sure, and we can't get subs, well, all staff, but especially when you think about special education, for sure. I know a school that their food service department went to a meeting and somebody tested positive and took all their food service out. Well, you got to be able to serve meals, and so put them in quarantine. So those are some things that schools are doing. And then the final thing not related to that I had down there in my update is bus inspection. We had bus inspection last week. It went well. We had 2 buses out of service. Those issues should be resolved this week. And then we had 3 buses get a 30-day fix-it designation. And so overall, it was a good bus inspection. Okay.
First, I had a parent call me today in tears because their daughter had been quarantined already for 14 days. Has been in school only 5 days since the beginning of the year, and then was called today for the quarantine again. And I feel her frustration especially when I see the numbers that we've had 356 quarantine and only 3 test positive, which is 0.0086%. So 0.009% are testing positive, especially as a parent, that I can see that frustrating because it's not showing that they're passing it along. What are we doing? Is there any flexibility in the quarantining, or is there any way to be conservative? I feel like we are sending, when you see numbers, we're sending 2 or sometimes 3 times as many kids home than other school districts in our area. Is there anything that we can do to be flexible to get these, because I think the parents said it right. They get the best education when they're in front of their teachers. Is there anything that we can do to make that happen?
Well, flexibility in terms of, there's no flexibility in terms of us, the standards, the 6 feet of distance and the 15 consecutive minutes. I'm not aware of anything that we would be able to do as a school to change that. I mean, that standard, okay? Obviously, the things that we can do are continue to try to find ways to, have kids in that situation as much as possible, not closer than 6 feet for 15 consecutive minutes. We've talked to our teachers about, or I've talked to, our principals about making sure our rooms are, we can utilize all the space that's available to get desks spread out. And, identifying what spaces are available in our schools and those kind of things to make sure we're utilizing all the space we have. Those are really the conversations that we've had around that up to this point.
Is that something that we can have a goal of getting done this week so that we don't have, I know we have more kids going on quarantine starting tomorrow. Is that something that we can have done this week at the middle school so that we can hopefully avert any more quarantine by getting the kids 6 feet apart?
Well, I wouldn't want to set and say, hey, we can do this and then we won't have any kids in quarantine, because I don't.
Well, yeah, but if we, look at the high school, how, by separating, we need to be creative. We need to think outside the box. We need to come up with ways to keep these kids in school, because that's where they're getting the best education. And we need to do the best we can so that we aren't having to quarantine 60 to 80 kids. And if we need to go to core courses at the middle school and split those core courses up, and so that we have two sections of 7th grade math or 2 sections of 8th grade math, and get rid of the elective stuff right now. I think it's something that, the frustration that I'm hearing from parents, anything we can do to alleviate that frustration and not have to be quarantining tons of kids. And I feel for that mom that the kids have been in school 5 days, and it's not good in mental health for the kids. And it's definitely not good for academics for the kids.
Well, I was gonna say, I think I probably would let these guys talk more about that in their reports about what things that they're doing or looking at, or options related to what you just suggested when they give their reports.
One question that I hear from parents a lot is it mandatory to test if they're sent home for quarantine? And I was told no. Is that correct, Casey?
We do not require anybody to test.
Jen, did you have a question?
For 7th and 8th grade, it kind of goes back to what Jen was saying. Why are we moving these kids from classroom to classroom to classroom to classroom? Because that grows your numbers on how many kids have to quarantine. I mean, if you can figure out a way to
Move the teachers.
move the teachers and not the kids. I mean, I know there's some kids in different math classes and reading and all that, so I know it's harder, easier said than done, but if you can limit these kids bouncing, I mean, you could go from 30 kids getting sent home to 10.
Just kind of piggyback on what Jen was saying too, and also what some of the parents, I guess, Anne and Jen had spoken about. I think that there is a big need for engagement for these kids when they are home, and how are we going to do that? And I think that, again, they need that person-to-person contact, that person-to-teacher contact, and I think that that's something that we really need to focus on, and that would help a lot with being able to engage with questions and the materials and things like that. And I think that that's a really good point that everyone's made. And like Jen was saying, you know, we need to figure it out somehow so we can keep the kids in school, or if they're not in school, that we can engage them. So, all right. Going on to principals reports. Sure. Oh. Yeah, Tammy, go ahead.
First of all, I really appreciate you parents being here, and I don't disagree with any of your concerns. It near killed me the first, I think it was the second day of school, having to walk kids out to the cars and talk to their parents. And I'm a very positive person. I was trying to see the bright side of things, but that one was really, really hard. And I don't disagree with anything you've said here. So in my report, I'll cover some general items, and then I'll talk just a little bit about the hybrid at the high school, and hopefully answer some of your questions and help you feel a little bit better about some of the concerns that you have, because those I share with you. So thank you very much for coming. If you look at that first page of your report, I simply broke down the numbers that we have in our two groups of hybrid students. We graduated about 107 last year, and we gained 162 freshmen. So all of a sudden, the school building got a lot smaller. And as you look down on the division of students, you can see that in Group A, there's 273, and in Group B, there's 277. So there was no magic formula except me going through Infinite Campus, counting kids in those different sectors of the alphabet. Whoever said, and I think it might have been you, Brad, when you said that such a small percentage of students have chosen to go online and how well that speaks for our school system, that really made me feel good, because some of my colleagues in the Raccoon River can't say that they only have 59 at high school. And 10 of my 59 are middle school students that are families that are being served by one contact person. So I was really, really happy about that. I only have 4 10th graders that are online, and they're all for justifiable reasons. So that made me happy. I also included Arweva and Kemper, because you all know we share 3 periods with freshmen and sophomores, and 5 periods with juniors and seniors. So those students are included in those numbers as well. We had to revamp our daily schedule in order to manage lunch, of all things. And it actually has turned out to be a time when students have time to study or make connections with teachers. You've all talked about that. You bet that's important. And so that's happening. Also, students being able to come in at 7:45 in the morning. They like to come in and go to their first period class. They can ask teachers questions. They've got a good half hour there to eat breakfast, things like that. So that schedule has been changed. I know you all like to hear about our DMAT classes. We have 17 DMAT classes going on right now for our upperclassmen. That's a combination of full online. I think Dr. Friedline is teaching full online right now. Most of the classes are full online. Some of them are lab courses like the chemistry class that Slade's taking. We'll have some live labs. The auto classes, they ended up having to hybrid those because of COVID. So now those are in 3 different sections. So you can see we serve lots of numbers of students in our DMAT classes. This is first semester only. We have our WEVA students come to our building for DMAT classes. We have Kemper students come to our building for DMAT classes also. Busing has been amazing this year. Jeff Cullen has done a fantastic job of organizing that. We have buses there right away when the bell rings. That hasn't happened before. That's going very smooth. Those of you who have freshmen, I don't know if they've mentioned to you about the color coding of our hallways, how much that has helped them. All of the names that project out from each teacher's door is a color. So each hallway is a different color. On the door is a stripe that matches that color. And then there are maps in the hallways, and kids go up and they look at the color, find their classroom, and then they can get right to it. Because even though the high school isn't huge, it kind of looks the same. Each hallway does. And so the freshmen especially were extremely appreciative of that. One of the challenges that we all faced this year was how are we going to do band and chorus? Because we all know about the respiratory transmission, and our band and vocal instructors have done a phenomenal job. The classroom for chorus now is the auditorium. And so you will go and you will hear singing in the hallways, and it's so pretty, but they are so spread apart. Sounds beautiful. Band now occupies the entire music room, and they are so far apart. They have bell covers, and they also go outdoors when they can. So those have really, I mean, they have really done a nice job with that. Let's see, new staff. Melinda has stepped in and helped out at the high school. That's been extremely helpful. Thank you, board, very much for your support of that. That has helped us out a lot. We have a new counselor at the high school. She has really done a nice job of figuring out what her job looks like at a time when it's hard to see students. So she has done a really nice job of working on the 4-year plans that if you have 8th graders, she will work on your 8th grader with that and catch up our students at the high school, because that's typically done in the spring. Well, we all know what spring was like, right? We have a new science instructor, and we have a new family consumer science instructor at the middle school that teaches half high school, half middle school. We started our NWEA testing. We didn't get to take the ISAFs last spring, and I don't know what the future of that is for this year, but we feel as if we have to have some sort of an assessment to determine what gaps exist from last year and set some benchmarks for throughout the year. So if you have a freshman in English, they've taken that. Sophomores and juniors are tomorrow and moving on, and then I'll take that in science and math. All right, let's talk about the hybrid. Okay, so I think any of us would be foolish to believe that every single thing we do is challenging. It just doesn't matter what it is. And so our biggest move to thinking about the hybrid was the fact that I had 23% of my freshman class and some sophomores and juniors out in quarantine. And it hit at the absolute worst time possible. We all know that 8th grade to 9th grade is the most difficult transition for students. It just flat out is, because high school is so different than anything else. Now you've got credits, kids are in mixed classes, you move 9 times of the day, and it's just really, really different. So as we started thinking about hybrid, which was in our return to learn plan, and recommended that students on offsite days would be working about 3 to 4 hours on coursework. We decided that we would like to be able to diminish our numbers of quarantine students and be able to focus on having the students there at least 50% of the time. And so we all know that we need to continue to hone and refine our skills of providing that offsite instruction. And I will tell you today at our PD, I can tell you with 100% certainty that you will see differences. What has happened is the 157 some students that we had quarantined were having to be served, obviously not, how we all would have liked that to be done. But then they were serving face-to-face. They were also serving hybrid students, and some of them are providing instruction online. So when you take somebody and you divide them up 4 different ways, nothing's going to be the best it can be. So last Tuesday, I celebrated because it was the last of our quarantine students were back at school. I will tell you that since then we've had 7 cases that were reported, either positive cases or students that were forced to quarantine because they had a positive case at home. I can't tell you how many students I could have potentially lost to quarantine. That would have been devastating. And so that in and of itself, are there challenges with hybrid? You bet there are. Are there challenges with face-to-face? Yes, there are. Do I want to go remote full? Heck no, right? Because there's challenges with every single one of these approaches. We all know that our kids want to be at school. I tell you what, it was the best day of my life when the first day of school when those kids walked in the door. And I love our kids. I love seeing our kids. I know they love school. I know they do. And so I promise you that we had instructional coach out for a couple blocks of quarantining. That person's back. The technology integrationist is back. And so now that teachers can totally focus on those hybrid students, things will get better. The other thing is that a lot of people don't understand, and the Department of Education is trying to provide as much guidance as they can when it comes to tracking attendance. And our goal on offsite days to track attendance is mastery of content, assignment completion. And those guidelines fall right in with what the Department of Ed just released. When was that, Casey? September 16th. And so when I see a student struggling, I partner with the parent and I offer to the parent several different options. I say, how about if they come every day until we get things back on track? And we do that. And then I offer intensive tutoring for that student. And we've had great success with that. We've had some of those students that have struggled through this quarantine that no one defined. What am I supposed to do when I'm at home, right? Have now started to, lift up, and they're starting to become more acclimated with expectations at school, and they're feeling better about themselves. So we had, during quarantine, I had a TA driving materials to people's houses. And it's not a fun situation at all. I will tell you, it's a very good feeling to have the kids back in the school, even if it's only every other day. It really is. And we are working very hard on the different ways that we deliver instruction for the different content areas. Someone before asked about Zoom. Why can't we Zoom? Well, some classes are doing that. The DMAT classes, some of the DMAT classes are doing that. Many of the teachers are recording their instruction and then they're uploading it. It takes time for that to download. so it's not immediate. I have a teacher that teaches the same class like 4 periods a day. So they record the first period, then they download it, and then they post it so the student can get the instruction that way. Students can be impatient though. They want it at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so it's taking all of us to adjust a little bit to those things. One of the things that we have worked so hard over the past 10 years is not lecturing, kind of like what I'm doing right now. But when a teacher stands in front of the classroom for 42 minutes, I can be in that classroom and I can watch kids just drift off. And so we've gone away from lecture classes. Haven't done that for a long time. And so if I'm going to Zoom a 42-minute lecture, that's bad pedagogy. So we're trying to stay away from that as much as we possibly can. Although each person has a device, we don't necessarily have adequate streaming equipment. I have a physics teacher that's using a 10-year-old flip camera. And I went in and talked to him today and he goes, that darn thing, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, because it was not acting appropriately, but it's 10 years old. It takes a long time for that to download. Logistics. Okay, so if let's say I had an online class here right now, if I'm going to pay them any attention, then it's taking away from you. It's hard to manage both of those groups at once, especially if you're doing discussion or interactive. So logistically, that is very, very difficult, especially when you only have 42 minutes with that group. Let's see. There's other things that we need to take into consideration too. There are equity concerns. The first day that we decided we were going hybrid, we had a Monday and Tuesday, we started on Wednesday. We surveyed our students because we wanted to make sure that if we were expecting them to be online, they could. And we identified many students, A, either don't have internet, or B, they can email, but they can't stream, or C, spotty. So then we thought, oh my gosh, what would we do for those kids? So what did I do for those kids? I offered for them to come every day. So there's ways we are rectifying certain situations that maybe you haven't heard of. That being said, we keep working really hard to try to get better at all of those things that you had concerns about. As I said, today was a great day of PD. Teachers are really focusing on their individual goals of working very hard for engaging off-site strategies. So I talked to every single teacher today. I've talked to kids. And I'll go into whole classes and I said, okay, you guys, tell me, how's it going? And they say, oh, it's going good. And I said, well, I need a little bit more than that. And I said, how much time do you spend on your offsite days on work? 3 to 5 hours. And I said, okay. I said, that's about right. That's what you should be spending. And I said, what needs to be fixed? And one student said, I get way too much work. So there's that fine balance of the different classes that kids are taking and the way that teachers are pushing assignments out. So the skills that kids are learning by owning their learning on their days off are skills that will transfer on beyond this year. And to see your child struggle is very difficult, but it depends on why they're struggling. Are they struggling because they're having to work through that content themselves and learn it deeper? Or are there other reasons? So those are the things we need to discern between. But it's okay if they struggle just a little bit. We obviously want them struggling for the right reasons, you know, that the content is challenging. I am blessed because I have a very veteran staff at Carroll High School. Been with them for a long, long time. And I will tell you, and I know this goes back to, I think, 2012, but we were a blue ribbon school. We're a breaking barriers school. Breaking barriers because our math scores were so high, our reading scores were high. We have national merit scholars. We have high ACT scores. We worked really, really hard. That didn't change. It's all of these other things that have impacted the way we go about business. So please know we're taking very good care of your children. I apologize for situations that have put you in bad spots, but we're learning, and I want to make these things right. So I hope that helps.
Tammy, I had a couple questions about hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Just from my own, because I have 2 kids at high school.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I would like to see is that some kind of, I was looking at Waukees sample of hybrids and online, and they were talking about there's some kind of required asynchronous or synchronous instruction daily, meaning online or a recording or that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it has to be just those things, but to be really honest with you, I haven't taken calculus in, oh gosh, I'm gonna date myself, 30 plus years. So like the kids, I think in high school get to a point that parents can't help
Mm-hmm.
without going back and relearning it themselves.
Mhm.
And so it would be nice, it'd be nice to, have something, even if it's like a Khan Academy over that, whatever they're learning,
Mm-hmm.
pulled up, or a recording that they do just teaching whatever concept they're working on that day, that it's downloaded. My kids had one teacher jerk off.
Mm-hmm.
My son was sitting working on his computer in the kitchen, and I was putting away dishes, and I stopped and I went over because he just enticed me to go watch. I mean, the way he was teaching and talking to the kids. And what he does is he records the first calculus session and then posts it. And my son has it on his watch. He knows when it posts because he knows what time his first one is, that he doesn't do the calculus until 3 o'clock in the afternoon because that's when the other posts. And that's not a problem. It's just that something to be actively teaching, like not find the definition of this vocabulary and write sentences. That's busy work. That's not teaching. But there needs to be something that there's teaching the concept, and then if it's mastery or whatever it is they're working on, but there needs to be some kind of teaching, I feel, from each of the classes daily, even if they're in hybrid, even if it's a reduced, it's something to have them actively engaged in learning. And another concern I had was just the progress. Are we continuing to progress? I hope we're not teaching the same concept 2 days in a row because A goes on Monday and B goes on Tuesday. And then we have, I mean, the kids have already been out of school since March. Are we diluting what they should know from the class are we doing that? I don't know. But are we still progressing and pacing so that they get the concepts that they should for the courses? Would be my other concern with the hybrid. Another thing that I've heard a lot from is maybe just to have the teachers have like a 15-minute Google Classroom sometime during the day. Good luck finding that 15 minutes, but that they could come and ask questions if they were stuck. Or maybe a contact person that they could call, because I think that was a big concern that I heard from parents was there wasn't a real designated contact person. So, and the teachers were teaching, so they couldn't get a hold of them. But someone, maybe a contact person, or if they have a hard time with something with technology, they could contact them and get it straightened out.
Yeah, no, those are great suggestions. I think it comes down to if we're face to face, I tell you, my classrooms are bare bones with desks pushed up against walls in order to say, right, Melinda? You're not 6 feet. And not for 15 minutes, it's not happening. I mean, I am a Gestapo when it comes to that. Ask my teachers. And so we need to decide, I mean, if we go back full blown on force, I got my rooms as bare as possible. The stats class, Providence Stats, which is first period, has 32 kids in it. 32, and even with 50% of those kids who come every single day, they're there every single day. It is, I'm telling you, if they went like this, they'd be closer than 6 feet. So we are happy to continue to refine our skills for offsite days. That's our goal right now. Now that we are void of our full groups of quarantine kids, and all of the things that you've talked about, they're working on. It kind of depends on the curricular area. There's also value in flipping a classroom where teachers model the work, they show some of the problems, and the student works on those on their own without direct instruction. There's value in that too. So a nice blend, a nice balance, everything in moderation is, you know, kind of our approach right now. But certainly we want to continue to hear from the people that, you know, are seeing the other side of it. So
I have a couple of questions. Mine aren't as good as Jen's, but how many periods a day does the choir meet in the auditorium?
there's 2 choirs.
Okay.
Mhm.
What goes on in the lunchroom when food is not being served?
What goes on in the lunchroom?
What's going on in the lunchroom when there's no food being served?
Well, actually, there's food. The food service now is doing the food program.
Okay,
So they're preparing meals. I mean, they do that from
right.
beginning
And
until
they do it
end.
outside of the kitchen, so they're in the lunchroom.
Sometimes, yeah.
All right. How about the gymnasium? What are we doing with the gymnasium? Is that tied up every day with something that could go off of being done because of maybe a core class could sit in the gymnasium, maybe a core class could be sitting in the auditorium when the choir isn't meeting, maybe a core class can be meeting in the band room when the band isn't playing. I mean, I haven't been in high school like forever, but our band room was also the choir room and it was empty 3/4 of the day.
Right. Well, a lot of that has to do, and I can't get into the specifics of the studies that have been done for air exchange. And there's certain time allotments that have to expire before you can put another group in there in order to be safe. The gym is used for gym class. So, and we've got full periods of gym. Believe you me, we've got the media center set up. We've used every possible space. I have no teacher's lounge, that's been shut down. That room's being used. So, but I appreciate those ideas. Those are definitely things we've already thought about.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking, how creative do we need to be? And as Jen lifted up, core classes, obviously I don't think PE is a core class, but maybe for now that needs to go away so that we can use the gym.
Well,
part of the day.
The difference is high school is different. Because there's a requirement for graduation, whereas elementary, middle school are a different. Plus, they're taking so many different levels of like math and stuff that it's not one core of 7th grade math. It's different ones for that.
And you have
just looking for room. For
yeah. No,
we definitely need to be creative and.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, Jerry, you want to go next?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, it's evident that you truly care about the kids, otherwise you wouldn't be here, and we appreciate that. I'm going to say some of the same things that Tammy has shared. We want our kids to be in school every day as well at the middle school. I'll just share my report and then I'll field any questions you have on our current plan, which is obviously having all students at Carroll Middle School. But in August, right after the last board meeting, didn't get an opportunity to share their, since most of this happened after that, but we had our new teacher training in August. And that included meetings with myself, also an opportunity for our new teachers to meet with their mentors, who we line them up with, and then our instructional coach and New Lantern Middle School, Kelly Schultz and Craig Rowetter for the technology. And so we feel like we give them, a really strong foundation that we started in the school year with our new teachers. As far as professional development at the beginning of the year, we provided teachers with teacher quality hours, which were 6 hours that teachers could be involved with. It was voluntary, but we had all of our CMS teachers participate in those teacher quality hours. And the focus, like the per diem days that we had for the August 17th and 18th, really focused on the return to learn plan, which would be to have all the kids in the school, hybrid model, and then virtual learning. And that was something that we were required to put together. And obviously, we started with all students being present at the middle school. In preparation for that, we updated our PBIS lesson plans, which is our positive intervention support system. And then we had our teachers learn more about the use of Google Classroom. We had an advanced Google Classroom class and other technology apps. And some of those would be Google Meet, obviously, Hair Deck, which is an interactive program that teachers are currently using, Screencastify, which is a way to record and then input online. And so many of these technology applications not only work well in the classroom, but for those students that may be in quarantine or in virtual learning. And we want to make sure that we continue to work on those and learn more about those so that we can truly apply them to those settings. The rest of the pre and service days that we did some work with Edgenuity training. Edgenuity is an online program that we use for our students that are online, meaning that they fill out the request to be online. And so we use that program. It's made up of, well, first we started with our teachers deciding on what the content for each of those online classes would be. And we did the core content areas and we tried to mix in what was available for like exploratory areas, whether it be Spanish or some of those exploratory settings. There were some art classes and things like that that could be incorporated. We put that curriculum together by our teachers for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Now, this is something that the high school had already done because they use it for credit recovery. And so we had to do that from scratch. We put that together, and then we were using that. And Kim Rennie, who's our supervisor teacher for that program, follows up with the students and the parents and helps them out on a daily basis, making sure that they're moving forward, because it is a self-paced online program. And then Patrick did a great job of getting the K through 5 ingenuity program, because they look a little bit different, but that was a work in itself, and I know we spent a lot of time getting that up and running, and so we served our 5th graders with that. But we had some social emotional learning through Dr. Desitels, and we've had her meet with our district before and visited with our teachers and provided some self-help and how to work with students in these difficult times and so forth. We had co-teaching training that we had, and we also followed up with our open house at the middle school. Today's training, we went back to some more professional development on the return to learn planning, and that was working with the various technology applications again to make sure that we could do the best that we could in serving our quarantine students. And it's a challenge. You're basically asking teachers to teach twice, and they're working really hard. Obviously, we need to continue to get better at it, and improve. And I think we're on that track, and we're continuing to learn and move forward with that. But not only that, but we also are continuing to work on that safe learning environment. You know, whenever we have a quarantine group of kids, and one of those examples would be in 8th grade, when we got hit with that, we immediately go to our classrooms and look at our seating charts and find out the best spacing ways that we can to move those kids away from each other as much as we can.
I hate to interrupt you. I want to ask a quick question because it goes right along with what you're saying, and I already had it jotted down. You know, when you say it's hard for the teachers to teach it twice, you know, to teach the in-person instruction and the quarantine students. And I heard it several times here. I don't understand with all the technology that's out there, why we look at it that way. And maybe somebody here can help me understand what obstacles that the classrooms have, that the district has, that the building has, that the students that are not in the classroom during hybrid, or whether they're out on quarantine, can't virtually see that classroom in real time. You know, when you can go to Walmart and buy a webcam for $5 and hook it up to any computer, that they can't. I would buy a webcam for a kid in every one of my daughter's classes to take that and set that up so she can see that instruction, turn the phone on, they can participate like Dwayne is in real time.
Here's what I did.
That they're there. I don't, that's what I don't get is I think we're looking at this, and that's maybe just me. We're looking at it as two groups instead of
altogether.
one instructional time.
The one thing, because I used to teach online a virtual thing,
Yep, no problem.
you know, at K-12 for over 10 years I taught, and in the classroom. The one thing that can be hard with that is monitoring the online group while you're teaching live. You know, I would turn off the chat because you can't control, you know, like.
You're not monitoring them when they're not virtually participating. So it absolutely, are you gonna have kids that might turn the computer on, sit there, I'm in attendance and not pay any attention? Absolutely.
But the ones that want to learn, we have.
The ones that want to learn, that
How
want
does
to
that work
participate
at
are gonna be there.
Because aren't they live at Kemper all day, like from beginning to end? Like you take attendance, you ask
I don't know if
questions.
it's quite beginning to end, but it's
But for the
essentially
most
they're-
part.
the people that are online are in class.
Kind of-
classrooms.
What kind of feedback do you get from the students that are participating in that?
I haven't really talked to any.
Sure.
I've talked to a few parents that have had kids in quarantine over there, and they said the first day it was kind of tricky just to learn like how to navigate all of it, but they said after that it was awesome. It held the kids accountable, you know, and it gave them the opportunity. And I'm like everybody has said, teachers are going above and beyond and have a whole lot of stuff on their plate. But then it gives the student an opportunity to say, wait, I have a question, instead of having to email, wait for a response. I don't get that. Email that. You know what I mean? I would hope that it could alleviate a lot of that, like in between stuff, and just make it be all acted together, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not in education, but it's just what I'm seeing on my end from my kids at home. That instruction, you know, or even to later on look at that and say, like, rewatch the math or rewatch the Spanish while you're doing homework. You know, use it in more than just one way, I guess, because I feel like that's kind of where we're at technology wise. I mean, you know.
We can rewatch every sporting game
Yeah.
we have at Carroll Live, but we can't rewatch a classroom presentation.
Yeah, or a math lesson, or, you know, just,
And nothing against television. I love rewatching the sporting games.
One of my kids' teachers has live sessions at the high school. And yeah,
I've heard.
and that he knows he has to log in at that time for that class. And I don't know if he's asking if he can ask questions because he goes in the back room, but at least he's watching it, and
Yeah.
then he's able to do the assignment because he
Saw it.
has, yeah.
That's okay, no.
It's hard to remember. after
Sure.
you get done.
It's just some other things that we did today. We had our grade level team planning. We had a numeracy project training, which is looking at interventions and learning new methods to teach students in math. We had a training in the fall of last year, and we were waiting for it to come back in the spring. And obviously that didn't happen. So we continued the training in this fall timeframe with all of our math teachers. So my screen went dead, so I can't see so anyway, just a little bit more information about what happened at Carroll Middle School. Carroll Broadcasting Companies supports a program called Tiger Tuesdays. And every one of the schools in the district participate in that. And our week is this week. And so I shared with you the link that has a couple pictures with it, but we have a 6th grade science teacher, Jody House, does a terrific job with STEM activities, and they work with solar ovens. Great way to get kids outside for school, and then an opportunity to do something fun like melt chocolate and check out physical changes and things like that. So it's a good opportunity for that to happen. I think on the rest of the report, I just mentioned a little bit about our online students and the number of students that we are currently serving. And it's a little bit of we have like 7, I think, in 5th grade, and then our largest group is 17 in 6th grade, and that's the group that Kim Renning takes care of with our Education program. So, any questions that you have?
I have a couple, Jerry.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm trying to.
that's all right.
First, kind of picking up back off of what Brad said. What can the board do to give you guys the resources to make those things happen so that we have the kids getting the best of their academic ability we can? I mean, what could we do? I mean, could we purchase cameras for the teachers? I mean, I know that one of the concerns I had heard was FERPA.
And that's what we're hearing too. That's what's held us back a little bit on doing some of those things. I think we're certainly going to open it up because there are certain opportunities where you could have Google Meet. Now, whether that means the entire class period of where they're having students from home being quarantined and coming into the classroom, I'm not sure that, and we certainly could look at doing that, but I think we would need to have some, more of a approval district-wide to look at moving forward with that.
Anything else that we can do to help you, like social distance? I think one of my main concerns is we want the kids in school, and we need to get them 6 feet apart. So we have to think outside the box to make that happen. And what I'm hearing from parents is hybrid is not a good thing for them to be able to work and to be teaching and helping that age of kids at middle school.
Absolutely.
Now,
and one of the options, if we had half the kids in our district that's 5 through 8, then we would be able to move them apart. We don't have that. And we knew that when we came in at the beginning of the year, that we would not be able to keep students 6 feet apart in the classrooms. So we've looked at I should say but we've looked at so many different ways to have our kids social distance. There creates some challenges when it comes to 7th and 8th. We move 5th and 6th grade teachers, but they also teach most of not all of them, but a lot of the core content subject areas. So as far as them having to move, they don't have to move nearly as much as you would with 7th and 8th grade teachers. And with 7th and 8th grade teachers, obviously now they teach one content area. So asking a science teacher to teach out of a language arts room might be a little bit difficult. So with 7th and 8th grade, our kids are moving, but we have our seating charts in our Google Classroom. When our exploratory teachers come in to teach in the classroom, they try as much as possible to keep the same seating charts as what the classroom teachers are. And like Tammy said, outside of the desks in the room, there isn't a lot left with what the teacher has in there.
And if we can't do that, if there's not enough room to move, do we need to put a tent outside? Do we need to partner with the church? Do we need to, I mean, what do we need to do to make that happen, that they're not six, so we don't have 60, 80 kids being quarantined, that we have the kids in school where they need to be? What can, I mean, there has to be a solution that we can think of. Do we need to just go to core courses and pull the electives and put them in? I mean,
There would be other classrooms available then. I don't think, not as many as people would think, because a lot of those exploratory classrooms, they're taught, those classes are taught in the pod classrooms. Now you've got your family consumer science room, you have your art room, you have your band and chorus rooms and so forth and things like that. I think a lunchroom works great for a study hall, but with all the banging around and things like that, you're not going to get much done as far as teaching. We use the gym, or we've modified the size of the groups for chorus and band, and that also creates a little bit of a dilemma with the size of the classes, because when it comes to chorus, it's required for 5th and 6th grade, and then when you get in 7th and 8th grade, it's not. So obviously the number is lessened, which means there's more kids in the classroom. So yeah, I mean, if there's another place to go, that would be a possible solution.
I know of a place.
one of my friends that teaches in Arizona, what they're doing is they're rotating. So for instance, there's a group in math, and they take half those kids into the math instructor. The other half are in another room with a TA or one of the teachers that's not teaching. The math instructor instructs, and then they switch. And they go work on the concept with the TA, and put the direct instruction is by the teacher, and they switch back and forth. And then they do flip for the ones that have it afterwards. He teaches the lesson the day before, and then they work on it. If they had the work time before with the TA, they work on what they learned the day before, and the TA is there to help them, or the other teacher's there to help them if need be. But just to get the kids out of, so that they weren't quarantining, Can you please work on it with Casey and come up with a solution so we can?
We don't, these kids, we want them in school because, like everybody said, it's hard to see them come to the office, and have to be sent home.
Yeah.
There's no fun in that.
Right. But I mean, just to think outside the box and come up with some solutions that, so we aren't doing that. I mean, it breaks my heart when parents are calling, crying because they have to have their kid at school 5 days. We've got to do something.
So yeah, we need to, as a board, discuss, do we need to have mobile classrooms? I remember when the baby boomers started pushing through schools, and suddenly there were little mobile home outfits all around, and it was 2 or 3 classrooms in each one. And then they go back to, you see construction trailers all the time, and then it goes back to a yard somewhere. So we need to be thinking of a way to distance our children during this time, and there are ways, but I'm hearing a whole lot of yeah buts, and I think we need a yeah, we're going to do it.
If course all of a sudden doesn't become that important for the kids that don't want to do it in 7th grade, but this be a good year to maybe not require it in 5th and 6th too. I mean, that's the singing and the band is a big issue. If those kids don't want to be there.
Well, actually, it works.
That would cut your numbers
It works
down,
in the
right?
favor if they do go to chorus and band, because then they're not in the classroom and they're with an instructor who has enough room, because he's either doing it in the gymnasium or he's doing it in the course room, where the course room is big enough in those 5th and 6th grade settings that they can get the kids far enough apart.
Okay, I thought you just said that the groups are bigger in
No.
5th and 6th grade. because
Well,
it's required.
they're taken out. What I'm trying to say is that in 7th and 8th grade, because the students, there isn't as many signed up, there'll be less that go to chorus,
Okay.
which leaves more in the pot. So that's a little bit more of the struggle. Then you have to, if you're going to have kids in different places, you're gonna have to have somebody with them.
And for some families, that would be like taking away volleyball or.
No,
taking
I'm
away
not saying
softball.
take it away, just don't make it required,
I see.
is all I was saying, but I understood the opposite. of
Sure,
what you
yeah,
were
I'm
intending.
glad you asked.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do they still have study halls last 2 periods for 7th and 8th grade if they don't do band or choir?
It's not last period, because they have, in 8th grade, no, they don't. They have their exploratory at that time. So somewhere in the 7th period, they would have a study hall. But then some of the students that are in the study hall go to PE.
So if they're not in PE, they have a study hall.
Right.
And if they're not in course, in band, and not in PE, they might have 2 study halls that day.
Or not, yes.
So at this time, is there an active plan to put the middle school into a hybrid?
No, well, all we've done is, I mean, things change daily.
Sure.
And we have to be prepared. And like I said, a lot of what we've been working on in our professional development is good teaching practice in the classroom, whether it be used there or it would be used in a virtual setting like a hybrid action. So, like I said, way back when in July, when we were asked to submit 3 different plans.
Sure.
And so our goal is always been to have all the kids in the room, in the building. And that's how we started the school year. And we want to continue to do that. And if there's ideas on what we can do to continue and make that where it's going to happen, we're all for it.
I was just gonna say, we're not sitting here tonight with the idea that we're going to a hybrid in the middle school Wednesday or the next day or anything else. Our focus right now is managing in-person learning with positive cases and quarantine kids. And, I've taken some notes here, and I know the principals have as well. We'll look at some of this stuff. So, I think that was your question, kind of like at the high school, we went on a Wednesday or whatever. We don't have that at this point right now. The other thing too, to keep in mind with everything basically from 8th grade down, you've probably seen this from other schools. Some schools they're doing something with a individual grade level or even a classroom or a teacher or whatever. So it isn't that we would have to say whole middle schools in a hybrid or whatever. So, there's ways to be creative that way as well. But, today, with what we know right now, we don't have that plan to say hybrid at the middle school starting whatever day.
Any more comments, Jerry?
Any other questions?
Thank you. Okay.
My turn.
Yes, Mr. Rabbit.
Okay, so, I'm Patrick Rabbit, the elementary principal. Seeing for the first time tonight. So PK4 is my area of expertise, and so for the board members, I handed out some papers. This being my first board meeting, wasn't quite sure what you wanted to know, what you didn't want to know.
We wanted to know this.
Yeah, so I was a little bit lengthy with the numbers for parents. I have a couple of extras if you're interested. It's really about fast testing and NWA and things like that. So I'll be just rather kind of brief over the top of it. If you have any specific questions, please interrupt me or just ask me when I'm done. So in the elementary, we're continuing to work on our culture. We're still continuing to work on supporting teachers. One of the things that I found in my short 4 weeks with your previously hired staff that now I have the luxury of working with, every single day is different. Every day. Every day that I come into the school, it starts at 6 o'clock. Hey, so-and-so's absent, so-and-so's not gonna be here. Hey, we need to shuffle this person here, we need to shuffle that person there. And I thought, is there a system for this? So I called my friend and I'm like, hey, Jeff, what is that? He goes, yeah, that's every day. That's every day. You're just gonna have to do that every day. So that was easier to get used to. Once I hear from my friends that this is just reality. It's kind of a shell game when you try to cover our special education kids that have challenges. So for instance, tomorrow or today, we had 3 staff members that had to take a COVID test. So that's 3 additional staff members will have to be covered for supervision, recess, all those type of things. So that big story, here's what I want you to know. Your teachers, your TAs, they are busting their rear ends every single day trying to cover each other and trying to make a successful educational opportunity for the kids. It's really pretty impressive. I would ask any of you to come in for a day or half a day, just to come in and watch and just kind of see how the teachers are trying to make things as normal as possible for our kids. So with that said, the foundation today came by, dropped off some popcorn and some M&Ms for our staff. A little salty and sweet treat for the teachers, and what a great foundation we got. Just amazing, from the water bottles they delivered to the face shields, unbelievable. So our version of online instruction for those parents and families that have decided to take that is managed by Tina Leftel, who was a 2nd grade teacher. So because 2nd grade had the lowest numbers, I looked at that particular grade level, broke her class out and distributed those students amongst the other 2nd grade teachers. We started out with 44 online students K through 4. We've had 5 drop for different reasons. Some a little too hard, some can't manage the kids at home. One decided to go to homeschooling. But right now we have 39. Here's what you need to know about Tina Leftel. Tina, she gets contact with those kids once a week for about an hour, 15 minutes to an hour once a week with each of our students that are online instruction. She's also available for them to answer questions, all kinds of different opportunities for them to interact with Tina. She doesn't just provide online opportunities. She really is pushing for rigor, and she's pushing to challenge those kids that aren't participating. And she does that through emails with parents, phone calls with parents, and when she gets no joy, then she reaches out to myself or Crystal Bays to help support those students that are home online. It is not for everybody, but the parents are making the choice that this is what I want for my child, and so we're doing our best that we can to support the parents' wishes. I really don't want to become great at online instruction. It's not something that I want to do. I want the kids in the seats, and the teachers to a T. Every teacher that I've talked to wants the same thing. They want the kids in the school building, face-to-face, doing some face-to-face learning, and having those social cues and those social interactions with their friends up at the playground. Some of the things that challenges that place is now we split our recesses, so we have to have double the supervision numbers. So decreased staff, double supervision, it's a game we'll win. We don't like playing it as much as we did before. So you can see some numbers here for fast testing this past week. We tested kindergarten through 4th grade. Got about 94% both at Adams and Fairview tested. Some of those are quarantine students, some were sick during the day that time, but we got a plan for getting those students tested. We have seen naturally a dip in our numbers, and that's to be expected, I think, based on the time off that the kids had. However, it wasn't this huge dip that I thought it might be. Our initial numbers were not very good. Where we've seen most of our drop is in the early ages, kindergarten to 1st grade, because they didn't get that literacy instruction for those 6 months, just before they got to 1st grade, and then we tested them so quickly. We have teachers that are dedicated to closing those gaps, and so we've got a plan. That's what we got to do. You can see that the numbers at Fairview dropped about 13%, and then the numbers at 3rd and 4th grade only dropped about 5%. That's due to that kindergarten and 1st grade lack of instruction. So our math testing, same numbers. We're going to work hard at getting those and try to. Then we have our data teams today. The PLC wants to do that. Try to figure out what kind of plans we can get for each individual. I'll stop there for just a second. See if you have any questions on that. Just some other things that I was thinking while we were having conversations is, I want to echo what Casey said before, the parents are calling 6:30, 15, I'm there about anywhere from 6 to 6:45, somewhere in that window. And parents are calling regularly, hey, Patrick's got a cough today, I'm just gonna keep him home. Not every parent, but a lot of parents are. Sometimes we have to send a child home because they're running a fever, sometimes they have a cough, sometimes they have a bellyache. And Laura, so Laura Hockup, she doesn't really want to send him home all the time. And I'm like, this kid is no mask, he's coughing, he's got a fever. His mom gave him some strawberry medicine this morning before he came to school. Maybe we can just ask him to go home for a day, and now that's what I don't want one student to provide an opportunity for a whole bunch of kids. And then we just call mom at that night and say, hey, how's he doing? Right? And he wasn't doing well, so he has been going now 3 days. And so what I'm saying to parents right here is that sometimes it's warranted. So we have to use our best judgment. But not, I mean, sometimes it's a 24-hour bug, right? It was, yeah, they went home and then it had to be 24 hours before they could come back. I get the frustration on that. I really do. So that was, the symptoms were different for this particular student. So today in our professional development week, we went over the hybrid model so that our teachers are not going to be going into it for the first time seeing the plan. We went over it, talked about it, fielded questions, and we're going to edit some of the parts of the hybrid model that were brought up today in the meeting. So with teacher input, hopefully if we ever have to go to that, we won't, we will thank the high school for forging the path ahead of us and identifying some of the problems they had. So one of the things that Fairview and Adams provides us is the lay of the land. With the older buildings, our rooms are bigger. And if you think about Fairview, 3rd grade, 4th grade, note there's only just a limited amount of interaction between those 2 grades. At Fairview, we have a pod for kindergarten, pod for preschool, a wing for 1st grade, and a wing for 2nd grade. So that allows us opportunities to isolate if we really need to. If something starts to flare up in one area, we can take a look at that pretty quickly and respond quickly. We've averaged about 3.5% in quarantine or in positive, and that's a number that includes our staff. So it's not too bad in the big picture of things. Currently, we have 24 in quarantine. That includes staff. 13 of those 24 have either a positive family member or a babysitter. So 11 of those are ones that are just quarantined for close contact. Not too bad a numbers unless you want to do 11, right? Or one of the 24. And but we're really working hard to try to stay in contact with them. The teachers are trying to do their best to make contact with them on a regular basis. I cannot tell you that I have physically checked up with all of my teachers on that, but I trust that they have been doing. Our bus drivers, I gotta tell you, I rode the bus for the first time the other day. God bless those bus drivers. Woo-wee, yeah, that's, you know, sometimes you tell them to turn around, it's like they didn't even hear a word that I said. So then you just walk back and you have that face-to-face conversation with the kids. And we also do have substitute teacher applications available for you to pick up on this table back here. I'm just joking with that, really. But we are battling that every day. Subs for teachers assistants and also subs for teachers in general. And Casey, thank you for reaching out to the lawyers and finding out if we can bring them back. If they pass all the tests ahead of that. So that'll help. What that'll help is our students that are currently not getting as good a service. They're getting an appropriate amount of service, but we really want our kids to get the best that we can provide care. And then, well, today, I don't know if you all knew that one of our associates' husbands passed away today, so that's an additional burden on our staff. So, yeah, all in all, teachers are working hard. Kids are laughing in the hallways and they're running in the hallways, and I'm telling them to knock it off, and they're just keep running. They're having fun at the playground. They're being as normal as they can be. Questions?
I have a quick question. When you said that you have sent a kid home with a fever
Mhm.
and they were allowed to come back 3 days later,
Nope, he's been gone 3 days. He has not been allowed to come back.
you don't make them have a test? So if somebody goes home with a fever,
Correct.
are they automatically into quarantine for 10
No,
days?
there was no close contact tracing, there was nothing we could
Is that
attach
the
that.
same for the middle school and the high school?
Mhm. If they're 24 hours symptom free, however, if they're identified by the public health as Jerry and I were at a party together and I tested positive, he would have to be quarantined. So, but.
We're just talking if they
Yeah.
So
develop
if
their
I
own
call my
symptoms.
daughter in and tell the secretary she has a fever.
Yep.
She's now labeled COVID.
Right.
And she's not told that she has to stay quarantined or come back with a negative test.
That's correct, unless the public health, right, the Department of Ed sets the standard. And the standards to the school, and the school says, okay, Department of Ed, we will do, please am I answering your question, it's probably one for you, but.
No.
Am I doing all right?
Keep going.
So the Department of Ed said, here's the rules, and you have to listen to the public health. And so that's what we're doing when Laura and Sarah Schulte have those conversations, because we don't have the authority to quarantine. The school district does not possess that authority. It rests with the public health.
Nor do the high school secretaries
Correct.
have the right to say you have to come back with a negative test.
No.
Yeah,
we can't
no,
force
we-
anybody to
They
take a
shouldn't be
test.
saying that, and I just want to interject, they are not labeled COVID if they have, if they call and say, you know, even if they say, I have a fever, they're
Right.
not labeled as COVID.
Nope.
I just want to make sure that that's clear.
That's a good clarification.
So like my kids like get croup every year. It's
Yeah.
no fail, all
Yeah.
4 of them.
Yeah.
And we're in that season right now. So if I know that that's coming on, then as long as they're symptom free for 24 hours without medication, they can come back.
And I'm looking for similar to that.
Without being exposed, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just normal.
Just because I know,
Yeah.
I know every single
Right.
year,
Yep.
we get croup and we're on nebulizers. and all 4 of my kids get that.
Yep, and
Yep.
allergies
You
the
won't
same.
have to quarantine, you'll just have to make sure that he doesn't have, you know, coughing and symptomatic when he's at school.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say if it's not matching what you're experiencing, have a talk with Tammy, myself or Jerry. We'll be happy to help you navigate those waters to get the right answer, to make you feel better about what the answer is. So,
See, on the COVID, on the, I don't even want to call it a website or whatever we have for on the Carroll website, when you go to that, it sounds like if you have a symptom, you have to be gone for 10 days, is what I read it as.
Yeah.
To the point that I had my kids in for well checks and I said no flu shot because I know they get symptoms and I didn't want them gone for 10 days.
Well, we need to look at the wording because that's not how we're operating. I'll look at it.
Which one are you on, Jen? Which tab?
I think where the confusion is that if you've been exposed,
I don't
and
know.
now you become symptomatic. You see
Sure.
what I'm saying? If you've been exposed to a positive person and now they become symptomatic, now they have symptoms, then they do have to quarantine.
Right.
Because they have been exposed and are now symptomatic.
Because that would be just like how you send kids home,
Yeah.
right? Like exposed, like how you know what I
They
mean?
have to,
Yeah.
but they have to quarantine anyhow,
I
whether they
think
have
it's a
symptoms or not.
fever because she has ear infection. I don't know if she's been exposed.
Right.
So she should be able to come back after.
She should be able to come
Right.
back.
Yeah.
She's fever free.
And I think the
That's
important
right. If
thing,
she stays not exposed, then yes. And nobody in her household tests positive and, you know.
But I'm not going to get them tested.
No, you don't have to.
That's- And you don't have to. I'm just saying, but there are some.
I think that needs to be
Someone
laid
in
out.
the house.
Yeah, I think there's
That
major
needs to be put
confusion
out there.
from parents on that because I've heard it and I thought that by reading it. That needs to be.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. Yeah, that's,
I agree. Yeah, the bottom line is, we can't quarantine. We can send home,
Right.
but we can't quarantine unless public health says, Patrick Rabbit. Put the key by his name and tell him to come back in 14 days.
And while I can see that all of you've got that, you knew that. I think one of the things we need to be proactive on as a board is educating the public that we're answering to a higher authority than the school district. And I don't think everybody knows that. And I think it would be only fair to say, no, we're following the law. we're following the guidelines that have been placed on the school district. And that's why he's being very careful. And I think all of them have said this at one point or another, the school does not quarantine. It is all done by Iowa Department of Public Health. And it used to be more of our Carroll community that had, the Sarah, for instance, that has been taken away. And it is now the state. And so we have to answer to what the state says. And I think we just need to be a little more proactive in educating the public on that, because they're thinking that we're just doing this willy-nilly because we want to, which is the exact opposite. We want the kids of Carroll to be educated and do well.
I think some of the confusion lies too in that, because is the people that are getting tested have access to the results so quickly, more so than public health can even, it's days before they can get a hold of them to ask them questions. So it is usually the school, it's the parents that is calling up and saying, I tested positive, or, my kid tested positive, or they were around someone who tested positive, and so it ends up being, okay, well, in order to follow the guidelines, this person, that they're going to get the call from public health. And so that's why I think that it seems more like it's coming from school, but I think it's just because we have to have access to that result, like immediately, it gets emailed to them. And so I think, and then they call the school. So I think maybe because the school is usually the first one to find out, that maybe that's what some of the confusion is here.
So you guys, as nurses and teachers, don't pick the people that quarantine. Public health looks at the seating charts?
We have to help. We are required to help public health because public health doesn't have the seating chart. So we do look at the seating charts and we have that information for them.
So that's the nurses and the teachers that ultimately look in the vicinity of where the, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's not public health.
Not for the school.
Okay,
Right.
okay, sorry, I was super confused. So it's just nurses and the teachers at school.
That
And
look at
then-
that information.
Right, for whoever's positive in the school. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I just want to say, Tammy, I wasn't pointing out.
Oh, no.
That's the school I'm calling is why that came to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the administrative assistants have been given direction when someone calls in sick. It's so awkward for them because they have to ask them these screening questions. And that's hard as a parent when you're calling in for the croup or something else completely unrelated. But they're required to ask those screening questions and it can feel very invasive.
Who are they required by?
Well, that was handed down from the nurses to help screen students when parents call in.
So our
So-
nurses,
School nurses?
our school nurses,
Why do they
Hey.
why should I have to answer those questions, Tammy? If I call in and say my kid's sick, that's all you need to know,
Well,
honestly.
yeah, I mean, I guess just the whole safety thing that we're just trying to make sure that, and I agree with you. I mean, you can say that. You can just say, well, I don't want to tell you. I mean, that's your
If
right.
I say my kid has a fever and then I get told they can't come back for 10 days.
Well, that
then you
shouldn't-
guys are all telling us that's.
No, yeah, we
You
won't.
know how it.
Yeah,
I
that
don't mean
shouldn't
to
have,
sound defensive, but
No.
it kind of makes you feel like, well, I don't want to give you any more
Right.
information than I have to.
right. And
No,
that should not have happened.
yeah.
Well, my concern is if they're asking medical questions and they're not in the medical background, are you breaking HIPAA laws?
Actually, all of the administrative assistants have taken the med training, the little course, because they used to act as the nurse before we got one. So we certainly don't have to ask the questions, but
And
it's
then if
just,
you're writing the questions down, or is it in a secure medical document? Is
they're
that
not
okay?
right. I don't think they're writing them down. They're, how are they doing it, Melinda?
So how are they, so when someone calls in, it's on the absence spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll just say the name and it'll say what the mom has said or dad or whatever when they called in.
Mm-hmm.
But then what questions do
And most of it, I guess I don't know what they're asking. I'm
It's-
assuming they're asking, have they been exposed? Do they have a fever or a
Right.
cough?
Right,
I mean,
yeah, those
We asked in the
questions.
doctor's office.
yeah.
Yeah, but we're not a doctor's office.
Yeah.
No, with FERPA, as was explained to me, was FERPA trump HIPAA in regards to us being in a position where it could impact us, our own health. That's what I understood from Laura. Is that what you
Right.
understood as well?
Mhm.
Is that FERPA would trump HIPAA if, because I was questioning whether or not we should let the teachers know. Even,
Right.
like, should we even let the teachers know that the student's being quarantined? And that's the way it was explained to me, Jen, was that because I could be personally exposed or other people in my control could be exposed, and I had a right to know so I could help mitigate any.
We don't get to know positive cases. Is that on the same level?
We don't, I don't think we tell them. positive.
No,
We just
no.
tell them that your student's gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what
Tell
I'm
us what
saying.
FERPA is.
FERPA is a federal education.
Reporting.
Anyways, it's like HIPAA but for education.
Yeah.
Reform,
Protection Act.
something. Yeah,
Something protection Act. Educational rights protection. Act.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's another good
Yeah,
question.
Please ask to speak with a nurse if you don't think, if
Mhm.
you're being told something that you don't think is right. I mean,
Mhm.
you shouldn't be told that you have to quarantine for 10 days.
No,
or
Yeah.
2 days
absolutely
if you-
not.
If you have a fever. Or,
Right.
or vomiting. You
Yeah.
have to be symptom-free for 24 hours before you can come out.
Right.
Which is the way it's always.
It would be
Right.
how it's always been, but
Mhm.
there, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that had, been anyone said that, but.
Okay. Can we move on?
All done.
So many questions.
I was gonna say,
Thank you
Thank
Thanks
so
for
much
coming.
for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a couple questions for all of the principals.
Mhm.
One of the parents mentioned that her child got sent to the office, to pick up a football uniform or something and had anxiety about that. Have you seen a lot of, everybody's got increased anxiety right now, so I don't know, have there been any issues with the students?
Well, it's no fun, I can tell you, with
Mhm.
our 8th graders, when we have to bring down one, and then you're gonna follow with some others. They know what's going on, and it's just, you just feel bad for them, because they're not coming back for a little while.
Well, I didn't even mean just specifically with that, I meant just in general. Have there been other issues with anxiety, acting out,
Oh,
any of those
for sure.
things? And
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
do we have the resources to help with that?
Thank you.
Along those same lines, the teachers have to have,
Yeah,
higher anxiety, is there,
there's no
is there-
question about that.
is there something, someone that they can go to or a contact person, or do they have, resources to help them?
I mean, I've been approached quite a few times with teachers, and
Mhm.
I don't know, I visit with them quite a bit. I've never asked our counselor to visit with them, but something to think about too.
Right, our counselors are meeting with students. I do have heard feedback from the teachers that time that kids come in early has been very helpful. The time that they have at lunch has been very helpful, because half of when they're not eating lunch, they are with a teacher. And it's not a structured time, it's more downtime. We've taken lots of classes outdoors so that they can get fresh air and enjoy the weather. Now, of course, that's going to change when the weather gets bad. But it's those other classes like your band and your chorus and your physical education and your CTE courses that provide different experiences for kids that help. But it's a struggle because of the limitations that the social distancing puts on us. Kids can't necessarily work together. And that's a layer that we're missing. I was talking to the teachers today, and kids learn from one another when given the opportunity to. But since you can't collaborate, that layer is missing. So now that falls back on the teacher too. But I appreciate you asking that, because that is something that is very, very much in the forefront of all of our minds. And it's really, really, really important right now.
I think a lot of times the kids, the only normalcy they have is school.
Mhm.
And so instead of anxious, it might be a relief to be there. I've heard that from parents too. It's a relief to be at school because it's the normalcy that's back.
Mhm.
Don't have to be hearing the background of the TV saying how horrible the world is.
Right.
And all that stuff.
I'll tell you, if you can just, it's a good feeling at school right now. And when I go into classrooms and I see it, it's reminiscent of what it was prior COVID, just what's happening. And so that, I love seeing that. The kids love doing that. So as much that we can do of that type of thing is really, really good. So I appreciate you asking that.
I have one more question. I don't know if it's a question for tonight or maybe down the road. So the families that decided to do online and are doing the Edgenuity committed for a semester.
Correct.
What happens after that? Like say that those kids want to come back to school for second semester. Is there some kind of plan for integrating them back into the
Right. That's a really good question. And of course, I suppose COVID will dictate whether that option is available for second semester as well. But yes, that's very good.
And that's why when, I know they were ahead of the ballgame in high school, but when we had to look at the curriculum, we had our teachers, because it's a mile wide, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. So our teachers picked what they teach the first semester. Now, it may not be in the exact same sequence, but at least we know by the end of the semester, if they follow through with the online program, then they should be
in a similar place.
ready to go for the second semester.
Thank you.
You know, can I say one more thing, Casey? I'm sorry. I went off script. I went off script, and so there was one page in here that I did not talk about with you. And I just wanted to show you that, first of all, our calendar, back spring when we created the calendar, the last thing we had in mind was that we were going hybrid, right? So our calendar isn't super conducive to hybrid, but it works out as far as balancing the 50% that's required. The other page I put in here would show you what October would look like. It would show you what November would look like, December and January. And I'm not necessarily asking for you to tell me tonight, yep, we're saying this through January. I just wanted to show you what that would look like. The 1 week in October with conferences, you know, that cuts down those 2 days, but it sort of balances out anyway. But that's what it would look like if we were to continue with our hybrid. So I just wanted you to have that so you could see what it would look like. Again, it just kind of comes down to which challenge do we want to tackle? The challenge of multiple quarantine or the challenge of improving our approach to offsite days. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. It helps
yeah.
to be able to kind of see what the plan is. Hopefully we won't have to use it, but it's nice to have that
Well, if I can
information.
wake up tomorrow and they say, "Cool, this was a horrible dream and this is over," then that'd be the best news ever. So
And I'll supply champagne.
yeah.
With the public on it, the thing is, I mean, I wanted to make sure that they knew, I mean, everybody on YouTube or whatever, just that we are, that we're focused, we're working with Tammy and with Jerry at the elementary. We're doing a pretty good job, I think, communicating across to help support our kids, so.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah.
And the teachers work hard anyway to have this added on. We really appreciate all your work.
Do you think future education schools will have a pandemic 101 in their college curriculum?
Medical school.
Yeah. I could see somebody doing a thesis on this.
Yeah.
No, but I do think that there are a lot of things that we're going to find out that we want to keep. A lot of the practices that we're doing now that, you know, we'll just have to see.
Okay,
Thank you very much,
Mhm.
principals and all the good, answering all the questions. That was really nice. The public really needs answers, and I think you did a
Mhm.
wonderful job providing information and answers. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for us as well. At this time, would you like to leave?
Free,
I know.
at last.
I know it's,
Oh, thank you for your
You don't
support.
need me.
Appreciate that too.
yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think with Jen, like Jen said, if there's anything that we can do to help you with the struggle, we're 100% behind you, and we want to help with whatever we can. We just don't know where to start with what we can do for you.
Right.
So, but if we hear of anything, we're definitely on board to help. provide
Thank you.
whatever.
Yeah, thank you.
You don't have to leave. I have an hour and a half presentation.
I just thought it
I know
was
we're gonna talk
to be a
about
long
this.
night.
Disappointed.
Yeah.
Instead of swing by in the morning, Gary, wait till it's over.
Maybe if they hadn't talked so much. They were up for it.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on, this is
We need to go back to donations.
Donations.
yes. Let's do that quick before we go into superintendent. So donations, that was
They're in there, aren't they?
Summerland.
Yeah, Slumberland, 300 gallons of hand sanitizer. Carrie Ladehoff would like to donate $250 to Tiger Vision. And the Carroll Rivalry Cup committed 14 new golf bags to the Boys and Girls Golf Program.
Wonderful.
Second.
Dwayne?
I think he's gone.
Dwayne's asleep.
Dwayne?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to get off mute.
That's all right. Didn't mean to wake you.
No, I'm listening all ears.
Karen?
Yes.
Annika?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Now we can move on to the superintendent goals in the administrative reports.
Yeah. I emailed these, I don't know if you were able to see that today. So, it's a draft, definitely a draft form. And if, any input or feedback tonight, or if you wanted to look at them and come back the next meeting, that's fine too. I did try to go back and look at notes from different conversations throughout the year, from the evaluation conversation, as well as my reflection over last year, and tried to pick, some areas to focus on. Obviously, I always think it's important for everybody to understand too, while there's 3 goals here, that is, there's lots of other things that I'll be working on throughout the school year. But you can see here, the 3 areas that I focused on were facilities that kind of got dropped with COVID last year. We're in the process of getting our plan, the plan that we had to create a plan back going. Also in the area, we've talked several times about it, and I've got a phone conversation set up tomorrow with about some training in the area of hiring, kind of that human resource area, hiring, retaining staff. So we're looking at some trainings that we would put administrators and the staff that does hiring through, so we kind of can develop a real good system of approach to that in the district. And then the other thing, obviously, I think every year, every superintendent can put communication and as a goal, but that's the 3rd area, especially thinking about how we develop just that stronger relationship between the school and the community. I think a lot of that starts with communication and different ways that we're getting information out, and then also the types of information we're getting out, recognition, celebrations, all those kind of things. So those are kind of the broad topics, and then I have some action steps there. But if you think I've missed the target completely and need to go back to the drawing board, got broad shoulders, I can take that too. But if you've got just any input, suggestions, I'm open to that as well.
We can have a social media, the posts and stuff. I know that you started, is it you are you running the school?
Well, we're going to have that in this office. Kelly Stitz will be helping do most of it. So yeah, we're just in the process of getting, and Chelsea helped Chelsea created the site for us. So use that as kind of our district social media.
Oh, it's warm in here. Is it just me?
We go hit that button again.
Toasting.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
We were teasing Dwayne and I was the one pulling us. It's so warm.
I think it looks good. I wish there was an easy way for you, because is that for the school administrators?
Yeah, the document.
Yeah, that it would convert it into our evaluation. Or, you know what, it kind of like merge it, so it's not like doing twice the question. Would be nice. Maybe we could ask Harry about that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay.
Alrighty. You don't want to move on here to the next superintendent goals? I'm sorry,
that's
no,
what
but board governance, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's just you know, there's another thing. If you know, obviously, I think it's always it's kind of nice to look at the year and you know where are the things that we know we're going to deal with throughout the year. Try to get organized around the reports that we want to give at the board meetings. That helps us be able to not just sit there every month and okay, what are we going to do at the last minute? So I've kind of laid some things out. Again, they're probably obviously many of these board meetings will have a lot more on the agenda than just what you see on this document, but really that's just what I'm trying to accomplish there. So so the board can see some of the big action items that would be coming throughout the year. And then just kind of some ideas on reports that we would have. We may juggle the sequence of those, but these are some things we've talked administratively about as well, and we would plan to do in terms of reports. That being said, if there are other thoughts and ideas that you would have, that doesn't, obviously we can add to, change as we go, but that's just kind of the point of this.
Just a guideline basically to see.
Yeah, and just kind of an organizational type thing to give us just to help keep things moving.
What gives me most hope is that there's a next year and we're out of 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you want a motion on this at all, Casey, or you're just going to present this for us? Do you want us to vote on this as far as?
I don't think it's something you have to vote on now.
Next, we're moving on to the course to college AmeriCorps, college access data sharing. This was quite long, I thought.
Yeah.
And involved. And,
I don't know if you happen to get a chance to read through it all. I did send it to Brett and had him review it. And he did let me know that he thought everything was in order there. And let me just say the reason I did that is because in this day and age, some people do get pretty sensitive to the amount of information that's shared between schools and different entities. And so I think it's important that these things just are in a public setting like a board meeting so people are aware of it. I have no concerns with it at all. This is the LCAN, and Cindy's on that too, Tammy, myself, the local college access network, and kind of the purpose is to trying to increase college access, enrollment, and completion to meet workforce demands. So they gather data on FAFSA completion, kids that start college and whether they finish a program, ACT, all that kind of stuff. And so this is with AmeriCorps, which they hire an AmeriCorps worker to kind of help organize the data. And it's not just Carroll, Kemper's on that. Other school districts in this region are involved in that as well.
East Side
Yep.
and South
Yep.
Central California and Greene County.
so is this just local and this data just stays local, or does it go national? That kind of thing too. I guess my question was because it looks to me, it just says college sure if it's just in Iowa, this data just stays in Iowa, or does it go further than that?
Do they access data nationally or just?
No, does the data they get from this, from all the information, all the data points that they get from this these pages and things, you know, when they have like,
Mhm.
personal data, your current school, building name, gender,
Mhm.
race, birthday, all these things. Does this data go farther than Iowa, I guess, with the students?
My understanding is no, this is an Iowa thing, and I think it stays mostly regional.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep.
Hey, Casey, on that, the question there on, at the kind of the top of page 3, kind of, it's the Iowa student state ID.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
The state, on page
He's,
three,
he's saying there's a,
student's name. Oh, yeah.
It's the Iowa state ID that it,
Their
access is
number?
restricted.
yeah, every student has an ID number that's, you know, it doesn't transfer to another state, but
Okay, I was just curious how far this data went.
yeah.
I guess the question would be who's the authorized personnel, because that's what it says, is access is restricted
Wow.
to authorized personnel.
Yeah, it says that a lot throughout this.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why I'm asking.
Well, that would depend. It could be a school person. It could be the authorized person that working Iowa College Aid. So there would be more than one user entity.
Curious. Lots of pages there. Do you want to move on to this position here?
Do we need to?
Yeah, we need to take action on that.
Alrighty. Is there a motion to approve the Course to College AmeriCorps College Access Data Sharing Agreement?
I make a motion to accept the Course to College AmeriCorps College Access Data Sharing Agreement.
Karen,
Yes.
Annika, Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Said yes.
Oh, you did, okay. Okay, moving on to the activity event, I'm sorry, yeah, secretary to the Transportation Department.
Yeah. So, first of all, there's a revised job description on there that, you know, I'd ask you to consider for approval. Jeff's looked at it. We've looked at it in the office. Because we did a long time ago, I think the date on this was 92, so you can go back a ways. There was a secretary for the transportation office. So, and then the second thing that I'd like to just get permission to do is to post for a secretary for the transportation department. Jeff Cullen, I think you know, does drive the bus regularly. If he's not driving a route, he's transporting students to a gym for volleyball or something. So that most days he's driving a bus. When that happens, there's nobody to answer the phone. Radio calls, he sometimes has to stop the bus and take that call or his phone. And also help, just there's no way to help get information to the schools from the bus. And that kind of thing. So the other thing I think that is important to remember is that as the Carroll Community School District does provide the transportation for 2 schools in the community. And, you know, if you add the 2 enrollments together, while I don't know the exact enrollment for either school, it would be in the neighborhood of 3,000 students. So Jeff also is shared with Glidden Ralston. We do have an operational sharing arrangement there, and that does generate the equivalent of 5 students. Take that times around $6,700. We do generate some money there, but it's also additional set of responsibilities that he has. And so I think that as I look now, I just have 2 years of information, but when I looked at the start of the year, you know, this year was unique. but last year was a challenge as well. As he's trying to answer phones and help with class bus lists for teachers and run TransFinder and all those kind of things. So a clerical secretary person would be able to help with a lot of these things. It would then give us actually, I believe, a third person that could become familiar with TransFinder, the software we use for routing and that kind of thing, assuming we continue to use that. And which I think would be a great benefit to the district too, not to just have that one person have all the knowledge and information. We'd have three. And the third person would be in this office still. Kelly would still help with TransFinder as well.
The secretary that we're talking about would be at the bus barn.
Well, either be at the bus barn or in this building, but the phone line would be the transportation department. Yeah.
Do we have a transportation line here to the office here?
I think so. Gary, don't. I know he's got an extension down there.
Yes.
I think he does.
So they could answer either place if it was called? Or does I go through Mary?
I think, I'm not positive. I think we have to dial two different numbers, I believe, within our system. Now that I think could be changed where you could forward it.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Because having to have Mary answer it negates the purpose of having this person, so.
Yeah, we would get that organized. We don't know for sure yet where the person would be. I mean, I think there could be, obviously there's a space here. I'm not sure about up there, a good space, but we would talk about that. I'm not sure yet where that person would be located.
And is this a non-bargaining employee then? So they would be on the secretary pay scale? Is that, or is it better to change the word secretary to assistant?
I like assistant better than secretary.
Would that affect the pay scale or anything?
Yeah, no, I
So
like
would
that
this
change.
be a 9-month contract then?
I'm looking at it would be very comparable in terms of number of days to the building secretaries. The difference would be they probably would start a little bit sooner because of Jeff's busy time starts, really busy time starts probably late July.
Okay.
And probably could be done. There'd be a good spot for a break, I think, in June.
Okay.
Where
a July through May 31st.
Yeah, somewhere in that. Yeah. Yeah.
Could we change it assistant to the transportation director or?
Yeah, change the title to assistant to
You're doing more.
Yeah, I think that might make sense.
Yeah, instead of office to the director.
Yeah, transportation director, assistant to the transportation director.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion, Karen?
Yes, I think we do.
We need a motion to approve the job description and then approve the hiring of the position, right?
Yeah.
Now, in the job description, you're changing it to assistant to the.
Assistant to the transportation director.
I think of office assistant to the regional.
Yeah.
John Krasinski in my head.
Hey, Casey,
Yes.
on this, under the position goal, do you want to get the word secretarial duties out of there and?
Administrative assistant.
Yes, to
Yep.
make it align with the job title.
Yep, good point.
So I'll move to approve the position of administrator or assistant to the transportation director. Is that what we're calling it?
Yes,
And approve the job hiring.
I'll second.
Monica?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes. Okay,
We also have this activity event manager.
Yes.
Is that gone?
what's next? Yes. Next on the agenda is the activity event manager, audiovisual.
Yeah.
That is in the yellow sheet in your book as well.
We had talked about that, Gary, was it 2 or 3 years ago? when Tiger Vision started, or when we,
Yeah, and
when Rob left, I think it was.
you want me to
Yes, go for it.
Well, we had got a request for some assistance in the Tiger Vision area. And so a number of us had some discussions with Chelsea. And it kind of boiled down to, it would be good to have someone that could help with setting up Tiger Vision, kind of supervising the kids and then helping get everything put away. And if you look back on some of our old contracts, and you don't have to go back very far, I just looked it up the other day, I think 2017, we still had an audiovisual coordinator in our contract. And if you remember when you were a kid, you'd come into the classroom and there'd be a film projector or a movie projector. Well, the audiovisual coordinator would come in early and would arrange that each person had what they needed, or an overhead. What the thought was is, let's just use that model as a stipend and have this person help. And I look back at that old stipend, and it was, at that time, it's about the same stipend as a junior high coach would receive. And we can adjust that one way or the other, but we've approached the idea with the union, and they didn't seem to have any problems with it. We got a little bit sidetracked, I think, on the job description. The first one we received was basically be an assistant to Chelsea. So it would be like another teacher in there. For what we're gonna pay, that's not what we want. So this is kind of a revision. I think Chelsea worked on it.
Mhm.
So it would just be something to kind of, because she doesn't have, and when we shouldn't expect her to do all these Tiger Vision events, and especially now we're doing a lot more. So the idea was this would just kind of be an assistant that could help out during the Tiger Vision events. So
are we gonna do like an hourly rate?
With-
Since some of the events
That's
are longer than the others?
that's a good question, and I guess
Like a volleyball tournament is a lot longer than a football game, or,
I think what we would probably prefer is a flat out stipend.
so it has to be employee then, or?
Not necessarily, because we do two different types of stipends, and I didn't think about that. But the old audiovisual one, you would have to be an employee because it was a stipend based on your base pay. But we also have some stipends that are a flat dollar amount. Driver's ed was one of those, weight room coordinator, cheerleading sponsor, those are all just flat rates. So we could do that as well.
What if there's more than one? Because they're really,
That's a good thought. Sometimes we allow them to split those.
yeah,
Because I
like,
saw-
I know that, my son does the
Yeah.
live stream, and, by the end of the basketball season, he's burnt
Yeah.
because there's so many games. And I know that Chelsea being at school all day and then being at school all night with 3 young kids.
Yeah.
We're paying her, right, extra for,
No, she doesn't get any extra stipend for the Tiger Vision part.
for the
You are so
nighttime, she
lucky.
doesn't? We need to make sure that.
So
Yeah.
that's something we could talk about too. But on those stipends, like cheerleading, for example, I don't remember the last time that stipend was given to one person. They split it by seasons, and we just allowed them to do that because we didn't care. But you could do that this way too. You could say, well, you take the fall sports, I'll take the spring, or however
Or
you want
every
to do
other.
it. Yeah.
Do it, okay.
Yeah. So I think we're open to that. I think we'd probably visit with the Labor Management Committee, kind of get their feedback and talk to Chelsea. But this is just kind of to get the ball rolling. We were kind of hoping to have this in place by the time school started, and then everything blew up.
And we had talked about it. I
Yeah,
swear it was like 3 years ago. And we said, yes, we needed to get her help and to hire, we even thought at the time, IT people in town that
right,
didn't have families and,
right.
yeah.
Weekends and-
Yeah.
This would be more of a, kind of a stripped down version of that to kind of get us started. Now, maybe as we go along, maybe you'll want to do something different. You know, maybe you will want to get an assistant or something. But this kind of gets our foot in the door without us paying a lot of money. And we'll see how it goes. See if it's what she can use or if we need more. So.
I think it's a great idea.
Responsibility every night.
Yeah.
Well, and it's hard to leave these kids by themselves because when YouTube crashes,
Mhm.
they're frantically being yelled at by adults.
Yeah.
And
I know, they get to read that, it's like,
Yeah. When I saw number 4, attend all events, I thought, who's going to do that? I thought, there's no way we can have one person doing all these things. So that's why I was thinking what you just said. Good idea.
Be great for late next.
I would like to see us not push this off too much longer. 3 years is enough. But also to look at it more as a collaborative, that maybe it's a team of 3 that rotate through.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
And then they all get paid,
Mhm.
unless there's somebody who just wants to volunteer, but
Well, is
Annika maybe.
I'll move to approve the job description of activity event manager, audiovisual, and approve hiring for the position. Is that okay?
Yep.
I'll second.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Karen,
yes.
Annika.
Yes.
Moving right along, the 28E agreement with Woodward Granger Community School District.
No, we,
Different agreement.
yeah, I was with a different,
Never mind.
this,
I know you didn't believe that, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
we have a student that served at Grand Wood in the Woodward Granger School District. And so this is just our agreement for that situation. So the student is making some good progress, so hopefully we're having conversations in the near future about transitions and stuff like that. So we'll just, but anyway, with this agreement is something we need to have in place.
I'll move to approve the agreement with Woodward Granger.
Second.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne. Dwayne,
Yes. Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Annika,
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
Okay, moving forward, these next policies, we are considering to, we're thinking of considering waiving the second reading for these. And,
Yeah.
I didn't know if you
Are they
wanted-
all policies that came from School Board Association to change?
Actually, 105 is from the School Board Association. The revisions on everything except 502, that one's different. Every other policy, the revisions came from our attorney.
We had done that whole.
This is actually, yeah, he had, but this was a new set of policies that they reviewed because of this is all coming from the changes to the Title IX law. And so you see a lot of revisions, all these revisions are related to that, you know, for the equal education opportunity policy has been updated to have the language about Title IX, grievance procedures, anti-bullying harassment. And then 105 is actually a new policy that we're adding to our manual on Title IX discrimination and harassment based on sex. Abuse by students, of students by employees, affirmative action, which is one that I think, didn't I see, is that the one they're recommending that we delete? Is that a different one?
That was 426.
Yeah, 426. She's recommending we delete that. Now, 427 and 502 are not in this, but there are actually second readings for each of those policies too, because they were on last month. 427 is the Family Medical Leave Act, which we realized that we had in that policy that's in your packet. There's some the bolded was actually not in the policy last month because Mary thought that Emily from Brett's office said to take those out. Well, she was saying that needs to be in. So that's why the FMLA policy is back in front of you tonight. But all the rest of them, 607, 525, 426, 424, 401, 105, 104, and 102 are all as a result of the Title IX changes. We went through, we've named our coordinator, that's Crystal Bays. Crystal is the coordinator and also the investigator. Right now, I am the decision maker, and then the appellate decision maker. We did our training with Atlantic because we share an attorney. What we would probably do is make the appellate decision maker be an administrator, probably the superintendent from the Atlantic School District, and then I would trade and serve as that in Atlantic. So we went through some training. Crystal and I both went through that. So we're getting ourselves our feet under us, so to speak, around the changes to Title IX. The reason why I'm asking you to do this in one reading is because schools are supposed to have all this in place August 14th, but a lot of us have been
A little busy.
distracted with other things. So that's kind of why I think it would be a good idea to do them in those policies in one reading. And then 427 and 502 are actually second readings, and we can talk briefly about those two if you want to handle those others in one chunk.
So one question, Casey, you were saying that basically majority of this, the lawyers already looked at and made recommendations. So what to take out, what to leave in. So really it's been actually reviewed by him. That's where most of the key.
Yeah, in Brett's office, Emily Ellingson is kind of the person on this. So she's reviewed them. Every revision is in there is coming from them on these policies.
The one thing I saw on 502 was the bold portion that's added. It says during approved remote learning, attendance will be taken, assessments will be administered, and grades will count towards the student's cumulative grade point average as if they're attending school in person. I don't think we were taking attendance in hybrid, are we?
Well, we are going, as far as specifically tracking it like they do on a daily basis, we got some guidance just recently on that, which says you're supposed to take attendance every day. So we will be, if we're not right now, we'll have to go back and retroactively do that. So we just talked about that today, actually.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's good to hear.
On 502, the other thing that the board wanted to had concerns about or questions about was whether or not it says students who wish to participate in school-sponsored activities must attend the last half of the day. The activity unless permission has been given. We talked about that administratively, and you see I don't have a change there. The principals were like, well, they haven't seen that be abused. I had told you in another district I was in, we did change that because we did see it being abused. They're not reporting that. That being said, if you feel like you want some stronger language around that, there's nobody that's opposed to that. So, policies, board sets policies, I guess it's you can let me know if you want to say you need to be there by 9 o'clock, or if something different, we can make that change.
I remember when we did talk about this the last time, and I was thinking, no, if you're sick, and you stay home. But then I got to thinking in this time frame especially, they're just gonna lie and come to school then, and I don't want them in school if they got sick the night before or something, and that they're okay by noon. I'd rather there was that wiggle room.
I was thinking the same thing you were saying, after hearing all the regulations that we already have.
Yeah.
We want to take another regulation on. I mean,
Right.
And we give them some, I mean, the principals can make that
Right,
judgment.
and they're
by
saying
themselves.
that this has not been abused,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking they got this. I'm cool with this, but
Okay.
that's just my opinion.
No, I'm fine with it. If that's really, since it hasn't been abused, I think it's
Yeah.
great. Also too, it gives more freedom for the parents and.
Right.
and
Goes
the
back to
schools.
it's parents'
Responsibility.
responsibility, yeah.
And if someone spikes a fever, they have to be that 24 hours.
Yeah.
If they do it that morning before, so
They
they
can't
can't
play
quite go
anyway.
back
Yeah.
the next morning, but then they are fine.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I say leave it alone.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
So can we take all of them and just
It's block.
say that we, in a block, and say that we want to waive the second reading, Casey?
Yeah, so in our policy 222, it says the board may suspend the requirement that the policy be considered and voted on for passage at 2 board meetings by a recorded vote of not less than 3/4 of all members of the board. So if you take that action, then you could do them in one reading.
Do we need to read them all, or can we just say approve all the ones?
Except for 427 and 502.
427 and 502, these are actually the second readings.
Right.
So,
Move
yeah,
to approve the second reading of 427 and 502.
Second.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Annika,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes. And I'll move to approve 102, 104, 104 R1, 105, 401, 424 R1, 426, 525, and 607, and waive the second reading.
I will second with one correction. It is 105 Title IX.
Thank you.
Karen,
Yes.
Annika,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
All righty. Moving on to the business report, business office reports.
Okay, now the real reason you attend the meeting.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, all this stuff is in your folder.
Yes.
I'll go through this. There's a lot of information, but I think we can go through it pretty quick. The first one, this annual settlement summary, I think this is pretty archaic. I mean, it's in Iowa code, so we do it every year, but what this is supposed to be is on June 30th, we're supposed to have a statement from the institutions where we deposit money as to what our amount in their facility was on June 30th, 2020. So I have that listed there on the first sheet. The only oddball one I'll call your attention to is if you look in the activity fund under IceJet, it's a negative number. Well, we allow people to pay with credit cards. The problem is we got to the end of the year and the company that processes those all of a sudden decided to take money out of our account, which they took more out than what I had in there. So it's not a big deal, but it just kind of,
It's like the charges of the different cards.
yeah.
They don't do that monthly?
No, this was like a one-time thing or
See,
something.
ours is monthly.
That'd be a better way. But anyway, so then if you flip the page, this compares what it was the year before. And there's just a couple I'll call your attention to. Obviously, voted PEPAL went down quite a bit. That's because it was stadium money. We were spending that down. Local option sales tax went up 46%. That's primarily because of the whole COVID thing. It kind of slowed us down on some of our projects. And so there's money, a little more money in the investments than we thought there would be. And then lastly, in the flexible spending, that's people's money for their cafeteria plan. And of course, with the whole COVID thing, people weren't going to the doctor and the dentist and all that. And so that's a little higher than what we would have anticipated. But this is just a snapshot on June 30th as to the money that we had invested. I think maybe just a motion to receive and file this would be fine.
I'll move to receive and file the annual settlement report.
Second. One of us did.
Annika,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jennifer, Dwayne,
Dwayne?
Yes.
and Karen.
Yes.
Okay, then the next one is the certified annual report. And there's a thick document. It has the flag of Iowa at the top. And then in front of that, it says selected certified annual report information. I think I will just go through my sheet because it's a summary of what's in that big report. On the first page there you will see our ending fund balances. This is what we ended the fiscal year at. You can see the general fund, we were up 375,000. The one that I'm really happy about is the next one, student activity fund. We were up about 40,000. Management fund, we went up 176,000. Local option sales tax, we talked about, went up 655,000. PEPL, you'll notice, went down. Part of the reason for that is that the buses, I should have looked this up, but I'm sure this is right. The buses that we bought the year before weren't delivered until last year, sometime in the summer. So we paid really 2 sets of vehicles out of one fiscal year.
Okay.
That's why it looks like, boy, you spent a lot of money there. But that's why. Debt service, that stays about the same. And then another important one there is the nutrition fund. Even with all the problems that we had, paying people, we weren't getting any income. Then we started the summer program. That actually helped us out. And we ended up with an increase of 59,000 in that nutrition fund. So that was good news. Then toward the bottom, you'll notice that those balances, there's a couple of funds where it's general fund and nutrition fund, where we have some freedom as to what we can spend it on. And if you'll notice at the bottom there, the general fund under restricted went down. That was partially our fault in how we were categorizing some of those funds. And if you'll notice then, it got moved up to unrestricted. And that's actually a good thing. The state keeps an eye on our restricted fund balances because what that is money from categorical funds. Like it could be TSS or gifted and talented or something like that. If we get that too high, they kind of keep an eye on that. That in their mind, it means they're giving us money that we didn't really need because we didn't spend it. So it's nice to see that our restricted will go down, like I said, about $500,000. And then you'll notice your unrestricted then went up. There at the bottom, student activity management fund, local option sales tax, and so forth, all of those funds are restricted for a specific area. Like management fund, there's only 3 things we can spend that on, so it's considered restricted. But overall, I mean, we finished the year in pretty good shape, and I guess that's good news.
It's impressive that the student activity fund is positive with getting out in March and not having all those sporting events.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying to keep an eye on it this year because, as you know, as we restrict people that come to the games, that's going to hurt our revenues. And at the same time, we're going to be offering most of those activities. So if it's an area that I can, I'll move some of it. Like, for example, music gets a little bit tricky because some of it's activity, some of it is general fund. If it can go to general fund, we're moving it in that direction because I think this will be a hard year for them this year. So, and on the next page, this is just general fund. And this is the revenue section. You can see there that, again, I'm just going to make this quick, but the bottom line on total general fund revenues, we were up about 604,000 or an increase of 2.96%. And then at the bottom, I like to split out local, state, federal, and other. And you will notice that local sources, which is primarily property tax, is down about 78.78%. State sources is up 1.1%, and then federal sources were down by about 0.25%. And that's a trend that has been gradually happening over time. The state is taking on more of the funding and trying to lessen the burden on property tax holders. And then if you flip the page, again, this is only general fund. Here's our expenses. And you will notice that the largest increase is up there on the first line, instruction. I think that's what you would want. That's our main purpose, is instruction. And that would be salaries, benefits, supplies, equipment that would go strictly for instruction. And then overall, you can see that our expenses went up 745,000 or about 3.75%. And if you look back on your revenue sheet, the revenues went up 2.96. So our revenues were a little bit less of an increase than what our expenses were, but that's not all bad. I mean, you'll notice that we still had a positive ending balance. And then at the bottom, people are always kind of interested in this. Our total general fund salaries and benefits went up about 4.18%. And our percentage of total expenditures to salary and benefits went up about 1/3%. So in other words, of our general fund expenditures, about 81% goes to salaries and benefits. And that's pretty standard for public schools. Then the last 2 pages, I've done the same thing, but we've lumped together all funds. I don't know as this is all that helpful because, for example, you'll notice that our revenues went up 2.62%. And then if you flip the page, our expenditures went down by 3.53. Well, a lot of that has to do with finishing off the stadium, some of the expenses we had there, the dual payment of vehicles in transportation. So the last 2 pages aren't really that helpful, but anyway, that's kind of the quick and dirty. And then if you look through, when you have time, this document, there's a lot of information in there. When you get to the expense section, it's about the about the 6th page. There's a lot of different expenditure reports, and you have to check up at the very top right-hand corner. It will tell you if it's all funds, general fund, management fund, or whatever. When we first look at it, it's like, what are all these expenditure reports doing? Well, they're all by fund. So anyway, so I mean, I think it's pretty good news. I don't think there's any red flags in there. Like, kind of the same as the settlement report, just a motion to receive and file.
I move to receive and file the certified annual report.
Second.
Cindy?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Annika?
Yes.
Okay, then the last one is the special education supplement. And there again, you have the supplement itself has the big yellow blocks on it. I had to do that to hide information The actual report itself, which I got right here, lists names of students and so forth. So what I do is block that information out, but at least you can see the districts involved. And you can see, I'll call your attention to Johnston, there on that first page, is $66,000. So we have 3 that are big contracts, and that would be one of them. The other 2 we'll get to a little bit later on. So on the tuition out, now these are students that are billed through the state program, and I'll get to that in a minute. We have 166,000 that we pay to other entities to serve our resident kids. Then the next page is, well, skip that because I'll show that to you on the summary. Then the third page is revenues that we received as tuition in from students that were outside of our district that are coming in for services.
What is that number, Gary?
317 was.
Oh. Okay. 317.
I think this is going to show up again later on.
It's like 317.
I couldn't tell what it was. Thank you.
The next page is receipts, which we'll get to that later on. Let me see, what else did I want to show you? I don't think there's much else here. Now let's go to this summary page. It makes it a lot easier to see this information. The first about 1/3 of the page down to the yellow line or yellow shaded area, that's our receipts. And you'll notice that we receive funds for special ed kids based on their weighting. They're weighted 1.72, 2.21, or 3.74. That's the weight they take times the cost per student. So obviously a 3.74 child would have much more severe handicaps than a child that is 1.72. But you can see this is how much we generated in that first column, fiscal year 19 to 2000 or 19 to 20. You'll see that in the weighting of 1.72, we generated 1,372,000. That was up 179,000 from the prior year. 2.21, it was up 61,000. 3.74, it was up 76,000. So overall, we generated just from the weighting 317,000 more than we did the prior year. Then below that are some areas where we receive additional funds. Part B special ed funds, those are federal funds that support special ed. Medicaid reimbursement, this is an interesting one. You'll notice we're down $88,000. Well, that's because our services cut off in March. So we had less reimbursement from Medicaid. Tuition in receipts, you can see it was 236,000 that we received. Teacher quality funds, that's the TSS for special ed teachers. And then the high cost funds, if we have students that are over a certain level, and that level is determined by the state each year, they will give us some money back to help us with those kids. We received money back on 2 kids. One of them was the one from Johnston. So overall, in the yellow shaded area there, you can see that our receipts were up 258,000 or 7.51% from the prior year. Then the bottom part is the expenses. You can see that instructional salaries went up 7.14. That's a little more than it went up overall in the district. If you go down to that yellow shaded line again, you'll see that our expenses went up 302,000 or 7.38%. Then the green line is the one you're interested in. Overall, we ran a deficit last year of $707,099. That was up about 44,000 from the prior year, which was 662,594. So we are still running a deficit. I think that I can look that up and get back to you, but I think that's less of an increase than what it was last year. So
Is the increase in the instructional salaries that position that we need at the middle school? Is that why it's a lot different than?
wasn't that for this year?
That's for this year, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
So
Yeah.
we'll show up, yeah.
Okay.
This would, your increase there would be primarily two things. Obviously, teachers, I mean, their salaries went up. I don't think we added any teachers. And then TAs, you know, some of that is because we have to hire one-to-ones and that type of thing. But those would be the two things that would make that up. So
And this tuition in and out is not just special ed kids, right? This is
that's just special ed.
This is just special
Yeah,
ed.
yeah. So
Are all the conference schools having problems, or the schools with having a deficit in the special ed?
Yeah.
About this
Yeah.
much?
there's some less, there's some that would be substantially more. It just depends on the district. I don't, Casey, you can probably address
Yeah,
that.
well, I think overall across the state, special ed deficits continue to rise. And some of that is I think links back to low per pupil increases in funding, because that affects special ed as well. But then also, yeah, needs of students are much different. You know, IEP teams make decisions. We always have an administrator there at IEP meetings. But honestly, from experience, rarely in those conversations does, I don't think we want to pay for that. Is that on the table for discussion? So honestly, it does feel a little bit like your hands are tied when you're sending those IEP meetings. But you know, yeah, needs of students are changing and increasing in the area of special education. But I think, I'd have to go back and look. I remember looking last year, and in the conference, it would be comparable, very much so, to what Gary said. Some more, some less. And the other thing too, I would say, is ask any school that started a program, like we started the iRise program, and I don't know of a school that started a program and then all of a sudden they don't have any students that are served out of the district. You know, because I've thought that way too. Well, gosh, we have programs, we shouldn't have to have kids served out of our district. Obviously, that's the goal, is to keep kids in school, not just for financial reasons, but it's simpler for families and all that too. But sometimes the needs and things don't match. So that's kind of a difficult thing too.
I see we have quite a few special ed tuition in. Is that something that overloads our special ed department here? Like, are we having to hire more teachers and stuff and people because we're tuition? Does it break even what their school's paying to service those kids?
Yeah, that's how we build them. There's a billing program set up by the state, and when you have a special ed kid that's tuitioned in, at the end of the year, I calculate for each classroom what their costs were, and then they get billed a percentage on how many kids were in there, so we know what one kid costs each day, and so they get billed for however many days they have a child in that program. So they do get billed the actual cost. Now, the tricky thing about tuition in special ed is when you accept them as an open enrollment family, okay, you will provide the transportation, special ed. Now, we bill them back, they pay us the open enrollment. If the special ed is more, which it always is, we bill them the difference for special ed. So it's a little bit different if they're only coming here for special ed services, then I think you could say no. But
Yeah.
if they're open enrolled, you don't have that option.
You
So-
can't, yeah, and schools are looking at that closer because especially, you know, in a late one, if you don't have a program to serve, you know, you don't have to take them. But yeah, so open enrolled in students that have IEPs show up on his report as tuitioned in. Actually, they're open enrolled in. But we haven't taken a student and from another district and as a result had to hire staffs in the last 2 years anyway. We have said no on a truly come over here for services because we felt like our loads at the high school it just didn't work, and so we did say no there.
Because the overage basically is paid by our taxpayers in our district, right?
And I would say that on those tuition in ones, I'm just guessing here, but I would say at least 75% of those are open enrolled. And if you think about it, if you were a parent and you had a child that needed services, that would be the way to guarantee services is to open enroll. So, because otherwise we could say no. If our program's full, we could just say no. Now this one is slightly different. If you go to the last page on the report, it's that one with the yellow boxes. On the last page, in kind of the middle section there, it says a district may request allowable growth and supplemental aid for a negative special ed balance for the current school year. That's what we need a motion that we are going to request that. And in the amount would be our deficit of 707,099 or 0.14.
So just a motion to.
Request allowable growth and supplemental aid
Okay, like.
in the amount of, yeah.
Okay, so I move to request for allowable growth, modified allowable growth and supplemental aid for special education in the amount of $707,999.4.
Second.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yeah.
Karen,
Yes.
Monica,
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
Okay, then the last thing I have is there's a sheet. Looks like yours doesn't have a yellow on it, but
Robbed.
yeah. This is what we have spent on the ESSER or CARES funds. And the Carroll Community School District, it's kind of shaded. I meant it to be in yellow, but I forgot to push the button. So yours is in gray, but we received $122,634. If you look down about halfway down the page, it says total expended, $17,996. Now, Diane tells me that we also have about 70,000 in Chromebooks that we'll be paying next month. So you may want to see this report like every board meeting because it will change. And then the bottom half there is campers. You can see that they would receive 77,000. Actually, that money comes to us. All their expenses go through us. So they have spent almost an identical amount as what we have. They have an outstanding bill of about $10,000 Chromebook. So this will change next month, probably quite a bit, especially our end of it. And if you flip the page, this is what we have expended for the FEMA program. And if you go down about halfway down the page, there's an empty spot. And then at the bottom, it says 9/20/2020. Diane submitted to FEMA a request for $30,314. That's from the space up. And then below that are the things we've expended since then. So you can see now here you've got some higher dollar items. The 6 scrubbing machines, 1 for each building, 6 electrostatic sprayers for buses and custodians, a lot of the disinfectant, and so forth.
What scrubbing machines?
I think they're for the floor, right, Casey?
I think so. I kept looking at that too, and I can't think right now what they are.
I thought we just bought a couple.
If you'd asked
We
me,
bought a scrubber last year.
yeah, but these are a
These
little
are-
bit different.
Yeah,
If you'd asked me about 2 months ago, I could have told you all about them.
I'll have to ask.
Yeah, but they're specifically for disinfecting.
Okay.
So how much money do we have left from the FEMA and from the CARES funds?
FEMA is a little bit different. We don't receive that money up front. So we put in for the 30,000. That, from what I'm hearing from other business managers, that it could take a while to get your money.
And do we have a limit, like don't ask for over a certain amount? Or, I mean, does it run out and then you're left holding the bill?
Could. I'm not an expert on FEMA, but I have heard that FEMA right now has almost shut off schools for new requests. The reason is some of these hurricanes that have come along, that's going to eat into their money. And there's a couple of other things that I don't want to talk about because I'm not an expert on it, but that will also eat into that same pot of money that was available for FEMA. So I doubt if we will put any more expenditures under FEMA.
What about the CARES then?
The CARES, it's the difference between the 122 at the
Well,
top.
that's what we've been okay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Yep.
sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yep.
So whatever's, so we have quite a few left.
Well, but we've got 70,000 in
We've got
Chromebooks
70,000
to come out of there. So
And what did we buy Chromebooks for?
So that way we truly have enough Chromebooks now to send for every kid to have one. If we would have to be online or that kind of thing, just so, but they use them in the building still, so they're in the buildings.
Did we order put our order through Chromebooks through this year compared to, don't we usually do from the other fund?
I think he did some from the other fund as well.
Yeah, we did a regular
Yeah.
standard order,
Okay.
and then these are in addition. There are about 300 additional machines on top of what we normally order.
A Chromebook is,
Like what you got right there.
yeah, I know, but my brain is not doing the math right now.
What are they,
How
a
many
couple hundred
Chromebooks
bucks?
did we order? Do you have any
I think
idea?
around $200 a
Okay.
piece. They're not.
Around 300, yeah.
Okay.
Those would be mostly for grades Fairview grades K2. That's where if we would have to be online or hybrid or whatever else, the kids didn't have machines. So that way we're prepared for that anyway.
So Casey, was there not enough Chromebooks for like elementary, middle school and high school that we needed this many? Or are there Chromebooks that are still available, but we put those on hold, or we refurbished them, or we sent them back and we're using these new ones? I guess that's my question.
Well, a year ago, we did not have enough computers for every kid. So this year we do. We still, I would say every year we shuffle some out of the group and bring new ones in. And that got us to one pretty much through, I think even down to 4th grade, maybe 3rd. It would have been close, but then we wouldn't have had enough for K2.
So we
K2.
have one-to-one right now, 3rd or 4th grade up, right?
Now we'd have one-to-one kindergarten up
We
now.
could.
Yeah.
That's really good to hear, actually.
Yeah.
So my question is, because I raised it up earlier today, is if we were to go to some mobile buildings so that we can distance our kids to keep them in the building, where would those funds come from? And do we have such funds to rent? I'm not talking buying, that would be dumb, but to rent.
Do you have much experience with those, Casey? We've had a little in the district.
We looked into them. We were looking at options for an elementary building. We were building a new one, and it was not it was definitely cost prohibitive.
They're very expensive. And typically you'd have to sign a lease for like 3 years or something like that. Another issue with those, you have to run power out to them, and you have
Plumbing.
and you have to get a foundation for them to set on. We've used them a couple times before we did the addition onto the high school. We had 4 of them, but I think we did a 3-year lease, and then when they were up, they were gone. But they aren't as cost effective as you would think. If you really need classrooms, though, that's one option, because they do work.
What about the 3rd floor? Do we have any classrooms available up there that we can, I mean, didn't it used to be a high school? Don't we have big science labs and stuff upstairs on the 3rd floor?
We do.
I don't know the rules in terms of if we use that space, do we have to provide restrooms for that area? That was, see, at one time they looked at remodeling the 3rd floor rather than adding on to the middle school. But one of the big issues was the restrooms up there are actually at the end of the hall on both ends, and there's steps to go up into the restroom. And so we couldn't make them handicapped accessible. I don't know, what the rules are in terms of, but there are some classrooms up there, there's no doubt.
And now it's storage, so I mean, we just,
We store.
it would take some work even on top of what he's talking about. But I don't know the specifics.
Yeah, because if we brought maybe the 5th and 6th graders back here, or maybe just the 5th graders back here, then there'd be more rooms for 7th and 8th to spread out. Since we're not going to use big swaths of space in our buildings to house classrooms temporarily, so.
And see,
I don't think
maybe
we
you could get a waiver on the restrooms if it's temporary. I don't know how that all works.
I don't think we could get 5th and 6th on the
No,
3rd floor. That'd
maybe
be-
I was saying just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One class.
Yeah, you said 5th and 6th.
I
so
did,
that's
and
what
then I
was-
went, oh
yeah,
no, that's too many kids.
Yeah.
So I backed it off.
What's that?
Does it have heating and cooling?
Well, I was just thinking of that. We have taken some of the plumbing out up there because it was leaking. I don't think there's any drinking fountains anymore.
We're
And
not
it's-
using them anyway right now, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's steam heat, and I don't know if they've taken some of those radiators out. Because, if they leak or whatever, they were just capping them off. That would be a question probably for Jeff.
Well, and it's so frustrating because we don't know how long, we could do all
That's
this
true.
work and then it'd be passed on through, and
Yeah.
I think that, through this whole thing, you have to also, I mean, we looked at the funding that we got specific to this. You have to to your point, this won't be forever. And so, there are things that we just have to get through, and, you don't want to take on a huge project, for example, like maybe, I don't know that it would be a huge project, but 3rd floor could turn into for this year and part of next, or I have no idea. I have no idea.
the fact that we started fucking around up there, we would hit asbestos, and that would be it.
Well, like this building, you have a little option because you got a big gym, it's got a stage on it, you've got a little gym. I mean,
Don't we
this
have a couple open classrooms too?
probably,
So I'm thinking if we could move one middle school class here, we'd have room to move
Everybody.
everybody else, and then they could stay in school, and we'd all live happily ever after.
And I don't, without third floor, we don't have enough room here to move a whole class.
I would say that's true.
A whole grade.
If we use the gym in that area, we wouldn't have to know. Because there's a
Like the lower
downstairs
gym.
gym, yeah, and then.
I know that they use the downstairs gym for rainy days, which makes sense to me. However, this isn't forever.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking we have a lot of space in this
Yeah.
building that could be utilized by one other class for now, just for now, but that would keep us from having to go to hybrid for the middle school.
I think my frustration, Casey, was like, I think Cindy hit it on the head. We heard a lot of buts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But without, oh, we'll work on that, or, I kind of felt like I was
We'll
downplayed when I said, please, help us, that
sure.
this is
No.
what we're hearing, and we're elected to represent the people of the community and do what's best for kids, academics, and I feel like we aren't doing that right now with what we're doing.
And that's the struggle and the push is that I think our staff and our administrators feel like, and again, you sometimes it clouds your vision, but they feel like gosh, what more can we do? So I'm just saying that's just the thing that you have to try to work through. You got both of that going on. You see what I'm saying?
I think they have done a magnificent job, but we have swaths of space. And we're saying, we got to send kids home because we have no space. No, they got to look at that. That's in my opinion.
And I think they need to look at possibly Google and using that more aggressively. Like he was saying, how come we can, do everything with sports, but we can't do anything with classes? And it makes a lot more sense to me. Why can't we use some sort of platform to video one class and then play it for the rest? Or they don't it doesn't have to be live. It can be just videoed and just video one of it and allow the students to have it. I mean, we're not using our technology. We're basically talking about all this technology we have, but we're not using it. We're buying computers, but we're not using it. And I think that what their frustration is, we have this, why aren't we using it? And I understand that. So
Sure.
I think that there's what we're saying, what we're doing is again, we want to help you, but then we won't want to do that. We don't want to go that far, but we
Sure.
I
No, that's
suspect
real.
that an air exchange system in the gym would be a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to retrofit classrooms. And that, when I'm told, well, we can't use the gym, and I'm thinking, well, we use it for volleyball and basketball and wrestling, and yes, we can use the gym, but it's not going to be a fun classroom. It's going to be partitions and, it's not going to be fun, but it's not forever.
But like Brad's idea, I'll buy cameras. I'll do it. I mean, whatever it takes. I mean, these parents are saying, look, we need to do whatever it takes. And I feel like, we're still trying to get a square peg in a round hole. We're still trying to do things we used to do in the same way or fashion, not using what we do have and the technology that we have before we get 20 PD days on it. And I think let's just move it ahead a little. Let's just don't worry if it's perfect. Just get it on there. Just video it. Just get it on there. Let them see it. So I don't know. I don't know if I have all the answers, but I think we need to incorporate a lot more of that.
Hey, Casey, I know a lot of people have asked me, they thought we were making the decision if we were going to go off hybrid at the high school tonight. I assume because we're coming up to the end of September. Can you kind of go over how that decision will be made?
Well, I mean, I think obviously we want to debrief on some of the information we heard tonight, and know and talk more about what things are we doing specific to those off days. I think I told Tammy today, I don't see us saying for a semester. I said, if the numbers go down, we got conference schools that don't have the positivity rate, that they're not dealing with a lot of COVID in their school right now. So if those numbers would go down, then, I think we don't want to be painted into a corner, so to speak, where you got to finish the semester. So I see us looking at probably another chunk of time in the hybrid and evaluate again. And when I say that, I don't see more than a month.
That's a good time.
Can we kind of make sure that if we continue on the hybrid, that we work on that synchronous and asynchronous
Mm-hmm,
instruction
mm-hmm,
of the kids and making sure that we're
yeah,
not teaching, we're not slowing down the progress of
Mhm.
using it correctly so that they're getting the same, regardless of the kids in chemistry, first semester or second semester, they're covering the same
yeah,
concepts.
They can go from chemistry 1 to chemistry 2 without being behind.
Right.
Good point. Long night. It's hot.
Interesting time to be.
Casey, did you want to talk about that gears?
oh, yeah. Just so you know, the other thing on there is gears money, and that's the governor's emergency education relief funding to purchase. It's to be used to purchase hotspots, provide a discount on available broadband internet service for qualifying student households. If the connectivity is not an issue, you could use those funds for laptops or other devices. So we're looking at hotspots. Those are kind of a pain, just honestly, because you don't get to just buy them and have a one-time expense. It's an ongoing monthly deal. But we get $76,400 in gears money, and Kemper receives 43.2. I share that just for the same reason Gary did, is that goes through the public school system, and the expenditures have to be similar. And technically, any equipment in either of those pots, we tag as Carroll Community School Districts, just because that's what you're supposed to do. But
Do we have spots on the buses still?
yeah, I think we have 6 or so.
Can't those come off the buses to use them somewhere?
Yeah, they could,
I know
or
they
we
use
could
that
take the
live
bus
stream when they
somewhere.
go someplace.
Yeah, or we can take the bus somewhere and park it, and people can access. Schools
What
are
about
doing that.
hotspots, like when you go on vacation and at the airport, you pick up a little hotspot that you rent for a week? And then you turn it back and it's like 20 bucks. Can you do something like
How
that?
secure those are.
It depends on the vendor, I think. I'm not sure vendors around here will let you do that.
We're lucky that we have any internet in this state, so.
Yeah, what we would do is look at buying them, and it would be a checkout situation for families, or in some cases, staff, if that was the need. But we'll work with, most likely locally, on that, unless it's just not working, which I think it would work with our local providers.
I think you only have 2 choices, don't you? Verizon and
US Cellular.
Yeah. Oh, and we work with Win with all our.
Yeah.
internet. Maybe
That's
they'll do it.
US Cellular.
Yeah, we've talked to them. I think the ones we have now are Verizon.
Yeah, I think this was for the buses. I think he went with Verizon because you're getting in over my head, but maybe the bandwidth and also the coverage. I'm not positive on that, but there was a reason that he preferred Verizon for the buses. That may not be the same for what we're talking about.
And we might need to put some limitations, because I know on the buses, remember those couple months we went over because kids were streaming movies on the way back? And the bill was like 3
That's
times.
true.
Kids are always thinking, aren't they?
They don't miss it. At least you're not using their parents' data, right?
Right.
But if they have them at home, imagine what they could stream at home on those hotspots.
Blockages. Any other comments?
I'm so glad we had this
Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I moved to adjourn.
Okay, great.
Seconded.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Done. I was interrupting you. I'm sorry.
Pleasure doing business with you
Thank
tonight.
you.
Thank you for all your information.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Dwayne.
Hey, I did see the next board meeting is listed on the 21st October. That's probably not correct, is it?
Happy made it online.
Good
I think
question.
it's Monday's the 19th.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Because he.
Okay.
Be the 19th.
Yep. All right. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Yep, you do.
I love it.
Bye-bye.
Great
Bye.
job. And I had a college